Well, good evening, mortals. We're back to play the rest of It Gets So Lonely here. You didn't catch yesterday's stream. We did one of the routes, and then we're about halfway through the second route. I think there's 4 endings. There might be 6. I'm not sure. But anyway, we helped a mermaid. The mermaid tried to drown us, so we switched paths, and we met a gravedigger whose entire family has died from the plague, and she has offered to let us stay a few nights. So, we left off yesterday going to sleep. So, we're going to find out how that sleep went. You can load up. There we go. I will be doing my best to read it to you, because... so treat it like an audiobook, I guess, with me making some dumb comments along the way. Sorry if I say anything wrong or weirdly, I'm not the best at reading. But anyway, let's get started. Though physically exhausted, you have to wonder whether you will be able to sleep at all. You can recall your previous dash through the forest in such vivid detail your heart is still pounding. Oh yeah, we were running through a forest trying to escape from someone that we don't know about yet. That fear has yet to leave you. Perhaps it will never leave you. Your terror was such it almost feels as though it has suffused itself into your bones, into your very being. But your exhaustion is greater than your worldly anxieties, and soon it claims you. Your eyelids fall shut and your breathing inevitably begins to even out. It's not long until you are spiraling through a dark, deep abyss, lost in Morpheus's kingdom. But your sleep, despite your wearied state, is not as restorative as you had hoped. Your imagination has always been overactive, even at the conservatoire. You are frequently beset by dreams of the most vivid nature. The dreams that you have had this night, lying beneath unfamiliar sheets upon an unfamiliar bed, are no less intense than usual. In your dreams, you are back at the conservatoire, the place where this adventure of yours began. You are wearing the crisp white blouse you once discarded in your grey and unremarkable skirt. Your hair is tied in braids, and your eyes are downturned, forever focused upon your feet. You tried not to look at your classmates, and you thought yourself fortunate if they did not look at you in return. You did not want anyone to notice you. Until that awful winter, that is, where everybody stopped paying attention to you for good. Nobody tried to trip you when you walked past them in the hallways. Nobody, in fact, so much as glanced at you. All of a sudden, there was no malicious whispers, no wicked laughter, no pulled hair, or no thrown objects. You were giddy with relief at first, this newfound means of tormenting you that your classmates had devised. But this little game, that complete and utter disregard, continued and on and on and on as the days grew shorter and the nights grew longer. As the time passed, you began to threat as to your state of your own corporality. Did anybody still see you? Did you even exist at all? Then, at long last, you found it, quite by accident, the source of all your woes. One of the girls had erected it in the forest, through which you were sometimes bidden to jog for PE class beneath the shade cast by an old oak tree. It was a makeshift tombstone, a small, meagre monument made of stone upon which one of your classmates had hewn a name. Your name. You knew at once as you stood there standing beneath the shade of that ancient tree that this is the reason behind your classmates' silence. This was why they had, for many months, been ignoring you so assiduously. They had buried you. In their hearts, you had already died. Your eerie dreams notwithstanding, you sleep more comfortably than you had anticipated. When you awake the following morning to the sweet chirping of birdsong, you feel well rested, albeit woozy. Your head is aching. It is nothing, however, that a cup of hot tea cannot fix. You stumble into the kitchen in your nightclothes, your hair loose and your feet bare, and the gravedigger turns to you. She looks at your face, which is pasty, and your under eyes, which are dark, and exclaims in the manner of one accustomed to solving problems, not complaining about them. "Oh, you look awful. I think you need something warm to drink. And maybe you need something to eat too? Let me get started on breakfast." And that is exactly what she does. I put my coat on before I start streaming because I'm cold, and I start streaming and now I'm too hot and I have to take my coat off. She gets started on breakfast, which proves to be quite the simple affair. Nothing like the luxurious food you were accustomed to in your past life. The bread is hard enough to break your teeth on, and the cheese is a bit too strong. It is food all the same though, and you do not complain. Your stomach was beginning to grumble. The tea is inoffensive at least, and you drink it gratefully. You thank the gravedigger girl for her hospitality, and she smiles at you in return. A sunny smile like a field of blooming bellflowers. It's no problem. Don't hesitate to ask if you need anything else, she says. Words which come to symbolize your relationship. You stay with the gravedigger for many, many more days, and limited through her means might be, she always tries to help you. The gravedigger sets you chores about the house to keep you occupied, a fact for which you are grateful. You need to do something to keep your mind off the frantic flight through the forest. You can almost forget about it now during the day. During the night, however, it returns to you, the sound of your feet against the foliage and the swirling fog. When you sleep, you are assailed by nightmares. Sometimes you awake after midnight, the sheets twisted around your body, your mouth gaping open in paroxysm of terror. Though you try to tell yourself otherwise, you are still afraid. Being with a gravedigger makes you feel less so, though. Particularly when you are sweeping the floors or keeping an eye on the bread loaves so they do not burn. You attend to most of the domestic chores, while the gravedigger concerns herself with the work that she knows best. That is, digging graves. Her dogged persistence when it comes to the pursuit intrigues you. So much so that you cannot help but posit a question to her one particular morning when the sky is festooned with clouds. Why, you ask her, perhaps a touch incessantly, do you continue to dig graves? There is nobody left after all to dig them for. You've always been practical and cannot see the point in it. What's the point in it, the gravedigger ponders while holding her precious shovel to her chest. Fortunately, she does not seem upset by your question despite its bluntness. You should count yourself lucky that her temperament is so very placid. I don't suppose there is any point to it really, Gravedigger eventually says with a smile. I know it doesn't have any practical purpose, but, well, digging graves is what my father did. He showed me how to do it, so I should continue his legacy. My father wanted to keep our family tradition going. And I suppose I want to do the same. That's all there is to it, really. That's all, is it? You think you can understand that? Though your companion's actions might appear to be illogical, there's a kernel of reason nestled amongst them. As she does not dig graves out of any sense of purpose, she does it instead out of sentiment. Besides, I have to do something to keep myself busy, don't I? If I spent all my days idling on my own, I think I'd go mad. The gravedigger laughs at this, and you, as though the prospect of her own madness is amusing. Her laugh, despite her slender stature, is not particularly delicate. It reminds you perhaps unkindly of a braying of the horse. God, we are a bitch. She gives us room and board and we compare her to a horse. You are ashamed of thinking such a thing, though, and your face flushes with the guilt of it. We cannot all be well-bred young ladies, you know. Still, the laughter of the gravedigger as it echoes through the grey, gloomy sky is strangely desperate. It sounds forced. Her smile, too, is a touch unnatural, the rictus grin of a corpse. You find it, despite your attempts to return her laughter with a polite giggle, that you cannot help but pity her. You retreat indoors briefly after your talk with the gravedigger, then set about some simple chores. The gravedigger trusts you well enough to manage sweeping the floor, a task that does not take particularly long, and preparing of the meals, a task which takes slightly longer. It is not until much later, however, once the sun has already sunk beneath the horizon and the moon is high in the sky, that the gravedigger returns from the outdoors. She is windswept after many hours spent exposed to the elements, and there is dirt caked beneath her fingernails. The gravedigger removes her cloak, which she hangs by the door, and then looks to the pot suspended over the fire, a fire which she stoked with your own bare hands. Scent of cooking food, that of garlic and onions, fills the air, suffusing the interior of the kitchen in a homey aroma which makes your stomach rumble. Taking stock of this, the gravedigger smiles at you, a toothy smile which, despite her status as a lowly peasant, is surprisingly clean and bright and white. Thank you so much, dear one. There's nothing like returning home after a hard day's work to find dinner already prepared. Now let me give it a test. The gravedigger dips her spoon into the soup and brings it to her lips. She blows upon it. Then she places the spoon into her mouth, the wooden utensil clacking against her teeth. You observe this with a touch of anxiety. Will she like the food which you have prepared for her? You have cooked for her before in the past, and she always is very complimentary of your efforts. Cooking is not your forte, however. You never had to concern yourself with it really, growing up in relative comfort as you did. You think that you enjoy this raw, rustic mode of existence more than you did the privileges of your past life. At least now, with the gravedigger, you have a steadfast friend, a staunch ally. When you are with her, you are not alone, and that is worth its weight in gold. The gravedigger explains after drawing the spoon from her lips. Her bright smile, guileless as one, it's delicious. Your face flushes at this compliment. You are unaccustomed to receiving them, and it makes you feel good. Shyly, you ask the gravedigger if she truly meant that, query which makes the gravedigger smile. Of course I mean it. Become quite good at cooking, really. That is a relief. You were not very good at all of this cooking malarkey in the beginning. Did not know how to handle a knife nor how to peel a vegetable, and you cut yourself more than once. You bled into the soup on several occasions, but never once did you throw the sullied soup out. The gravedigger lives a humble existence, and she cannot afford to waste her precious ingredients. Your soups during your stay have all been seasoned with the slightest hint of iron. Today's soup, however, is a marked step above all the rest. You did not cut yourself with a knife even once. Maybe your companion's compliments are not empty fluff. Maybe you really are improving. This soup should be ready to serve. I have some bread too, that we can eat it with, but oh, I should brew some tea too, let me. Ah yes, the tea. You knew that you were forgetting something. You were so focused on the soup it must have slipped your mind. Your face flushes yet again at this oversight, and you shyly offer to correct it. The gravedigger, however, waves your request aside. No, it's alright. You made the dinner, so I'll brew the tea. It's only fair, and it won't take all that long. Would you mind serving up the soup while I'm busy? Of course you would not mind. You enjoy making yourself useful. For a lady, you are awfully domestic. You work alongside the gravedigger to finish your nightly meal, and together you serve it. Soup and bread alongside 2 cups of piping hot tea prepared by your hostess's own hand. You sit together at the table, then partake in a simple fare. After saying grace. Soup really is quite good, despite it being made from only the most commonplace of ingredients. There is a bit of a kick to it, and it warms you up from the inside out. The tea, meanwhile, is very soothing, so much so it makes you feel rather sleepy. We'd like to sit with the gravedigger for a while longer and tell stories, as you have sometimes in the past, that or play cards. The nights are long, and there is no better way to pass them than by spending time with her. Games of Old Maid, alas, will have to wait. You are too tired for it. You do not know what has happened, but after consuming your victuals, you feel utterly fatigued. You explain your predicament to the gravedigger between your yawns, and she nods in response. That's alright, you don't need to stay up with me. Not if you ain't up to it. You should head off to bed and rest that pretty head of yours. Do not think you are particularly pretty, but you presume that the gravedigger is just regurgitating a phrase to you. She does not truly mean it. How could she? She is far prettier than you are. You thank the gravedigger for her understanding, and then rise from the table. You retreat to the spare bedroom on trembling legs, then change out of your clothes. You have only just slid into your nightgown when you hear the rapping of knuckles upon your door, light and unobtrusive. The rapping could, of course, belong to but one person. It is the gravedigger coming to check up on you. I'm sorry, the gravedigger says, her voice soft. But you rushed to your room so soon after eating, I couldn't help but worry about you. Do you mind if I took a look at you? I just want to see if you're alright. The gravedigger is trying to keep her voice steady, but you can hear it is wavering regardless. She really does sound concerned, so much so she could very well be on the brink of tears. You do not want her to cry for you. You would feel horribly guilty if you upset her, even inadvertently, given all that she has done for you. You bid the gravedigger entry into your room, therefore, without further delay, an invitation she hastens to take. Door swings inwards with a creak, and there your hostess stands, still attired in black. Her clothes are stark contrast to your pure white, well, off-white, nightgown. The gravedigger looks at you seated in bed with your head freed from your usual braids and exhales. Is that relief, you wonder, playing about her face? But why? What was she expecting to see exactly before entering your bedchamber? Thank you for letting me in, the gravedigger says, toying with her fingers. How do you feel? Not too terrible, you sure? There are no particular problems with your health, you just feel tired. You sure you're not sick? Your face does look a bit pale. There would be nothing out of the norm, you are always pale. True. Now, is there anything I can do for you? Would you like something warm to drink, or maybe a hot brick to place in your bed? It should keep you warm. You appreciate your hostess's thoughtfulness, but you reassure her that this won't be necessary. You'll be fine. I hope so. I thought about my father too before the gravedigger begins. Her voice soon trails off. She has not finished that thought. She doesn't need to. You know now what she is thinking of before she entered your bedroom. Cold, clammy skin, a sweating brow, rank, oozing pustules. You think upon these symptoms, which are eerily similar to those recounted during the Great Plague which once beset your own country, and you shudder. If you don't want anything, then I'll be on my way, the gravedigger says. But before that... This was just fancy on my part, but I was wondering, would you mind if I brushed your hair for a little while? Your hair? That's right. It's such a pretty shade of red, is all I just thought. Well, it's just a fancy, really. You don't have to let me, not if you don't want to, but I thought it might help you relax if you're feeling under the weather. I've heard it's supposed to be soothing. That is what the gravedigger says, but you have a distinct feeling that she is the one looking for solace here. She's not quite so selfless, perhaps, as she would like you to think. But she has been so very good to you, and has done so very much for you, then, that you do not want to begrudge her with a small self-indulgence. You rather think she deserves it. You agree with their thought to her request, and upon doing so, you are certain you have made the right choice. The hostess's face lights up immediately in a manner which makes you blush. Oh, thank you, it'd be my honour. Now let me fetch my brush. The gravedigger retreats from your room in a hurry, but returns soon thereafter, holding in her right hand the promised brush. The artifact acquired, the gravedigger then settles herself upon your bed by your side. Does she have a brush? No. Take a quick sip of my tea. Seems like quite a fitting beverage, considering all the mentions of tea. She looks at your hair for a few moments, her expression pensive. Then she announces that she will begin. The gravedigger leans in. The wooden frame of the bed creaks under her weight, a creak which melds with the sighing of the breeze outdoors. You can feel the bristles of the brush running through your hair. It is soothing enough, so much so it makes you shiver. The sensation is a pleasant one, and somewhat nostalgic. Did your mother do this for you, you wonder, when you were a little girl? If she did, it must have been when you were a very little girl. You have not seen your mother in quite some time, not after you enrolled at the conservatoire. Oh, you have such lovely hair, dear one. It's soft just like silk, not at all like mine. Mine is so coarse. This gentle voice draws you out of your vague, half-formed reminiscence. It sounds as though the gravedigger is lost in nostalgia of her own, because her voice, when next she speaks, is dreamy. I think my mother used to brush my hair like this for me, back when she was still alive. That must have been a long time ago, though. It's funny, you think, as the bristles of your brush continue to slide through your tresses, that you and the gravedigger should both be reminiscing in tandem about your respective mothers. Perhaps there is something maternal in the act of brushing one's hair which is wont to summoning forth such images. I would not know, personally. I cannot remember my own mother at all. I don't think I liked having my hair brushed very much, the gravedigger continues, her breath warm against the exposed nape of your neck. My mother used to complain that I squirmed too much, I can remember that. She always told me to sit still, though it wasn't my fault. I squirmed so much, she used too much force. Now this is curious. It sounds as though the reminiscence of the gravedigger are not particularly fond after all. Did she not get along well with her mother? I can't rightly say, the gravedigger replies in some sombre sort of voice. I was young, like I said, when she died. I don't really remember her too well. But I don't think she ever had that much time for me. She was too busy with all the cooking and the cleaning, and looking after my baby brothers. But she had a hard time enough despite that to brush her hair. She did what she felt she had to make me look presentable. That it really worked. I wasn't like the other girls in the village, you see. They liked to sit indoors with their mothers, and so I always loved the outdoors. My father said I inherited that from him. Ruefully, the gravedigger smiled, not that you can see it with your back facing her. My mother said I wasn't very, well, maidenly. She didn't like that I always trapezed outside after my father watching as he dug graves. She said it wasn't appropriate, like I was some sort of princess wearing a fine dress. The gravedigger snorts. I used to get a bit muddy, yes, and maybe I did get burrs on my clothes and knots in my hair, but it shouldn't have mattered. It's not like I ever had any hopes of marrying a prince, no matter what my mother said. But still, she hoped she had a lot of hopes, my mother. I hopes. I think she might have resented my father, maybe, for working such a menial job. Her profession is an honest one, but it never made much money. I think my mother was hoping for fine jewels and dresses and... oh, I don't know. She always had ideas. Her head was full of fairy tales. It was a shame, I suppose, that her reality didn't match up to what she wanted. I didn't match up to what she wanted. The bitterness in your friend's voice is unmistakable, so much so you want to console her. What would you say to her, though? You never met your companion's mother. You never will either. A cold, inert body has been lying in the graveyard, buried beneath a tombstone for over a decade. You have no way of ascertaining whether your companion's mother truly cared for her. You do have intelligence enough to understand that poorly thought-out condolences can cause more harm than good. You would not like it if people tried to reassure you that, of course, your father loved you really. If he loved you, then why did he send you away from home? Why did he never send you any letters? You know he was worried about his finances. That seems a poor excuse to pretend that his only daughter didn't exist. As for your own mother, meanwhile, she was nice, at least you think she was, but she was woefully ineffectual. Though she was not only an adult, she always cleaved before your father's judgment. You think that she was afraid of him. You do not try to tell the gravedigger, therefore, that her mother loved her, that she must have done, else she would not have given birth to her. Instead, you sit there, letting the brush run through your hair, and you say quietly that you understand. Sometimes you feel like a disappointment to yourself. Well, the gravedigger says after a pause, I'm glad I'm not the only one. I guess it happens to all of us. You guess so. Parents are only people after all. While one hope one's parents would be kind and attentive, they too can fall victim to caprices of their own. Just because one has brought a child into this world does not mean that one will be able to take care of it properly. Not all parents are responsible, just as not all people are responsible. It is a painful subject. Oh well, it's alright if my mother never liked me, or even if she never loved me. I know my father did, and that's all that matters. He was always there for me, no matter what. Your companion voice catches in her throat. She winces. At least, until he wasn't. He died, and I didn't have to do a thing to help him. Your companion's shoulders are beginning to shake. You still cannot see her, but you can feel her body convulsing. You can sense her loneliness rolling off her in waves. It's all-consuming like the waters of a deep, dark ocean. Grief anew pierces your heart, not on your behalf, but for the sake of your benefactress. She does not deserve to suffer so much. This, you have no qualms with telling her. You turn to face her and pluck the brush which has been hovering in the air inert from her fingers. Then you let her know that her father's death was not her fault. What could she have done? She could not have cured his illness. I know, but I can't help but think, what if I keep racking my head over and over trying to come up with something? But I can't think of anything, and even if I could, it's too late. He's already dead. He's dead and buried. I buried him, and now I'm all alone. She might have been alone, you tell the gravedigger, but she isn't now. Not anymore. How can she when you were right there? I know that, I know, and I'm grateful, but I don't know if I deserve it. Why would she not deserve your company? You do not understand. Because I couldn't do nothing for nobody. My father always looked out for me when I was a little girl, but when he needed me the most, I failed him. I failed everyone. All the villagers, all my friends, all died. What would I do if the same thing happened to you? I don't think I could bear it. I don't want you getting sick too, not when I care about you so much. I thought I'd gotten used to being all on my own, but now that you're here, it's making me worry all over again. And worry so much I can't sleep from it. I'm scared. Your companion's voice catches in her throat. Then she collapses in on herself. She leans forwards, her arms around you, arms wound around her middle as if to steady herself, and she cries. She cries and she cries and she cries. For a few moments, you look at the gravedigger, unsure of what to do. Her pale face streaked with silvery tears seems to flicker in the candlelight. Her shoulders, which seem too slender to bear the cumulative weight of it all her sorrows she has endured, is shaking. Your fatigue continues to cling to you as insistent as the fog which rolls amongst the tombstones in the graveyard at night. You are not so very tired, however, that you cannot offer your hostess some comfort. You do not know what you can say to console, though you feel too worried to think of some pretty sophisms. But there is something you can think of. You would not typically be so bold, of course, but you are tired enough for once to throw caution to the wind. That and the tears of the gravedigger are awfully arresting. You open your eyes, and before the gravedigger can pass comment, you pull her into your chest. Oh. A soft exclamation escapes the lips of the gravedigger, quieter than the sound of the wintry snow as it brushes the ground. Then there is nothing. Well, that's a nice image, isn't it? The gravedigger is stiff in your arms for a few moments, like the corpse she and her father used to seal away inside the wooden coffins. She's all wide-eyed and awkward, pointed elbows, tears still coursing down her pale cheeks. You worry briefly as you hold her that perhaps you made a mistake. Were your attempts at consoling her too clumsy? You would not know, you have never been in a situation like this before. You have never consoled any friends before because you've never had any friends to console. It is not so now, however. You are far away as you can be from your own life as it is possible to be, and the gravedigger does not curse you for your impudence. Neither does she try to squirm away from you. Instead, she sits there, still as a statue, cradled in your arms. Oh, Sniff, I'm very sorry to show you something so embarrassing. I get so lonely sometimes. Until at long last, with a breathy sob, she lets the full weight of her body fall against yours. You run your hands through your sobbing companion's shoulder blades and her back. Gently you soothe her. Tell her that she does not need to apologize. There is no shame in crying. You hug her for many, many minutes while she sobs against your chest, wetting the front of your nightgown. No further words pass between you that night, but they do not need to. Words are irrelevant in a moment as tender as this, shared between two souls who have come to understand one another through mutual loneliness. You slide beneath your sheets, you still feel exhausted, and the gravedigger joins you without asking for permission. It would be an unnecessary piece of politeness, really, given your acceptance is all but assured. You have already accepted the gravedigger after all, every single inch of her. You have accepted her hospitality. You have accepted her food. Now you are accepting her company. You arrange yourself beneath the sheets, then draw her body to yours. The gravedigger has not yet changed into her nightwear. Her clothes will be horribly rumpled when she wakes from the following morning, her head resting against your chest. But tomorrow has ceased to matter. It no longer exists. There is no concept of time between the two of you. No thoughts of the day which will dawn once this night inevitably ends. Instead, there is only the warmth shared between you and the wetness on the cheeks of the gravedigger. There is the sound, irregular now, and less intense than before, of your companion's muted, muffled sobs. There is this gentle, tender moment snatched in the middle of a deep, dark night which can never be replaced. Your eyelids feel heavy as though weighted down with stones. They droop inexplicably downwards, pulling you like a drowning maiden into the dark, impenetrable bliss of slumber. You yawn, and then you fall asleep, cozied up beside the gravedigger like two cats in a basket. You sleep and you sleep and you sleep more deeply than you have allowed yourself in quite some time. But when you awake, you find yourself you are no longer in the bed upon which you slept, shrouded by sheets. The gravedigger, too, is nowhere to be seen. Ooh, new image. Does not look good. Seems like we're in a bad situation. Instead, you are quite alone, lying by yourself in the dark. You blink, but your surroundings do not become any clearer. It is the middle of the night. Perhaps you are roused from your slumber by the desire to relieve yourself, or else to slake your thirst. Your sleep has been awfully disordered as of late, and the smallest amount of noise might have been enough to disturb you. That does not quite sound right, though. You slept well, of that you are certain. Your body feels invigorated, as though it has slumbered for hours and hours. How many hours? You do not know. You do not know much of anything. You can feel a strange pinching sensation around your chest, however, and around your arms. It would appear as though somebody, who else could it have been save the gravedigger, changed your attire while you were sleeping. This is startling thought, but the darkness which entombs you is even more so. Darkness which surrounds you is incessantly complete. It is so thick that you cannot penetrate it. Your newfound woes do not stop you, however, at this deep and natural darkness. It is cold, too. Are you lying upon something hard? Some sort of a stone slab? What is going on? You reach out, but your movements are soon stymied. There is something heavy lying atop of you, something that is limiting your movements. You were anxious before upon waking, but at this discovery you feel downright aggrieved. A sharp prong of panic pierces you, but you try to suppress it. Hysterics will get you nowhere. In most cases, they only tend to make bad situations even worse. You ought to know that already. You swallow your mounting dread as best as you can, though it is coming on thick and fast and trying to squirm. You move your arms outwards, but they do not get very far. There is a wall above you and walls on either side of you, walls that do not budge no matter how hard you push. No, not that I must add that you can push particularly hard, your anxious state notwithstanding. You have never had much in the way of upper body strength, nor lower body strength. Do not have much in the way of strength at all. Feel quite helpless as you lie there, out of breath from your meagre exertions, unsure of what you should do. You can hardly see a foot in front of your face. Do not know where you are, nor why, but a terrible premonition is beginning to bear upon you, one which initially you tried to discard. Did not want to accept it as a possibility, but where else could the truth lie? You are lying in a box hemmed in by walls which offer only a scant few inches for you to stretch in any directions. Where else could you be but a coffin? The moment you allow yourself to ponder this awful reality is the moment you hear it, the irregular sound of drumming. It's as though somebody, though you must be very large some means, tapping their fingertips upon the lid of your coffin. That, or it is raining. It is not the fingers of a giantess, though, which disturb you, nor is it the falling of rain. It is dirt. The sound continues on and on as though it is drilling its way inside your skull. It is relentless. It is merciless. Like the ticking of a great celestial clock, it cannot be stopped. Your time is almost running out. But you knew that already, didn't you, when you were running through the forest? You ought to have known, silly thing, that you could not outpace your destiny forever. Sooner or later it would catch up with you. You are stubborn, though, and you do not want to accept this. Not content to simply lie there, you cry out. You cry out not for your parents, whom you hardly knew, nor for your school friends, for you never had any. Instead, you cry out for your new companion, the girl with whom you've been living and with whom you've shared one precious, cherished moment. You cry out for the gravedigger. Surely this is some manner of mistake. Once she realizes that you are in fact entombed in one of the coffins she is currently filling, for who else would be moving the dirt above you, she will cease her operations at once. She will pull you out of the darkness back into the world of the living, and then she will hold you close. She will embrace you. She cannot mean to cause you any harm, not when she was so good to you, so kind. Why would she bury you? You cry to her so loudly you fear your vocal cords might tear, all banging against the roof of your compact prison. You cry desperately, helplessly, and to your relief your cries do not fall upon deaf ears. The sound of falling soil stops, albeit briefly. Then, you hear a voice. The voice is very faint, given it being filtered through your coffin's sturdy lid, but you recognize it. So you're awake then, are you, dear one? The gravedigger says. She sighs. Then she says in a perplexed sort of voice, Now that is a pickle. I was hoping you'd be asleep a couple more hours, so the last time we spoke could have been on better terms. You keep screaming like that, I'm going to feel bad. Your companion's words, though distant, are unmistakable. You are so tense, you are attuned to every single syllable of each of them, makes you gasp. Was this not a mistake, then? Does she truly mean to bury you alive? You posit this question to the gravedigger as best you can, trying to keep the tremors from your voice as you do. Perhaps you think it's in your optimism that if you do not let her know how afraid you are, she will reward you for your bravery and let you go. If this is what you are hoping, though, it is in vain. That's right, you really do catch on quick. So it would appear she really had committed to the task of burying you. What an unfortunate turn of events. Why, though, would she do such a thing? You thought that she was your friend. We are friends, the gravedigger says, her voice still worryingly offhand, worryingly empty. I'm very fond of you, there's nobody dearer to me than you. I've had a really good time with you these last few, How long has it been again? I don't remember. Neither do you. Well, if this is the little detail that slipped both your minds, it can't be all that important. You have other things to worry about now. If you really are friends, you say to the gravedigger, then what does she hope to gain by burying you? You do not understand, but you understand her reply even less. Well, here's the thing, the gravedigger says in a reasonable sort of voice, as though burying somebody alive could ever be thought of as a reasonable action. I've been digging graves for a long time, you see. You cannot see, it is too dark, but you affirm that you do, all the same. Well, I was digging all these graves, but I've never had anyone to put in them. Not for ages, it was rather sad. You think you know where this train of logic, twisted though it is, might be going, so you do not interrupt her. You know no good would come of it. All you can do for the present is lie there and listen. I was thinking I'd never find another person to bury in this godforsaken village, not after the plague messed everything up. I was getting desperate. Until you came along, that is. Now that I have somebody I can bury, I'm not going to let the opportunity pass me by. I'm sorry, but this is part of my job. It's what my father taught me to do. It's all I know how to do. I buried my mother, and I buried my father, and I buried all my friends. Now I'm getting to bury you too. It is sound logic in a sense, as the daughter of a gravedigger digging graves is her job. But something about it rankles you. If only you could put your finger on it. Ah yes. There is a bit of a flaw in her reasoning, is there not? You are not dead after all. You might not be dead now, the gravedigger says in response to your ingenuity, but you will be if given enough time. I mean, everybody else I have ever known's died. Who's to say you wouldn't be next? It seems rather more likely that you will die, and quickly, if she persists with her poorly thought-out plan to bury you. Your coffin is not very large, it affords you precious little space. Eventually, if trapped within it for long enough, you will run out of oxygen, and then you will suffocate. That, or you will starve to death. Either way, your demise will be a slow, painful one. You're unsure which death would be worse, though, given how precarious your situation is. Do not wish to expend the necessary energy needed to ponder it. You need to plead with the gravedigger, and quickly, while she is still here. You tell her tearfully that you would not leave her. Why would you? You try to sound as convincing as your disordered nerves will allow, but the gravedigger remains unmoved. You say that, she says. But how can I tell you're not you're telling the truth? I thought you said you were a traveller. They never stay put in one place for long. You'll get sick of me before long. Then you'd leave me. This way, at least, I can be assured that we'll always stay together. If I bury you like I did the others, we'll never be far apart. Can you? I even took care to put you in a nice spot close to my home, so's you're only a stone's throw away, really. Isn't that nice? Privately, you think that the gravedigger has a different conception of the word nice to you. Do not say this, however. You cannot say much of anything because the panic has begun to set in. It is choking you, stopping up your throat so you can only cry. You scream, you beg and you plead, but it does little good. The gravedigger has already buried her mother, she has already buried her little brothers, and she has even buried her father, whom she loved above all else. She thinks by burying you she is doing unto you an act of great kindness. You think that she is going to kill you. In a sense, you are both right. Your opinions so diametrically opposed on this matter, however, that you will never be able to find any common ground. You might as well save your screaming. She will not listen to you. She is beyond listening. Shush, shush, dear. One, says the gravedigger, very gently, just as gently as she spoke last night when she confided in you all her fears. It won't be so bad, really. Nothing will be able to hurt you down there. It'll just be like going to sleep for a really, really long time. You can rest, and while you rest, I'll tend to you. I'll plant flowers on your grave. You'd like that, wouldn't you? This way, we can always be together, and I'll never be lonely again. While the gravedigger speaks, she begins to pile even more soil onto the roof of your coffin. The sound under the dirt on top of you, on your arms, your legs, and your heads conceals your companion's final words. You cannot hear her. You cannot hear anything beyond the sounds of dirt and the scrapings of the shovel and your own desperate, frantic screams. You scream and you scream and you scream without cease until your throat feels hoarse, but your efforts are in vain. You hammer on the lid of the coffin with as much strength as you can muster, but the lid of the coffin is nailed shut. You are in no position to remove it. All you can do is lie there screaming and crying and banging your fists on the roof of the coffin over and over as more dirt and debris falls on top of you. Eventually enough dirt falls on you to stifle your screams for good. The gravedigger can no longer hear you. You can no longer hear her. You are all alone, trapped in the narrow wooden box which, regardless of what you want, is now your new home. You can smell the soil in the back of your nostrils when you inhale. It is so potent that you can taste it on your tongue. You can taste the eventual, inevitable decay of your own body. You will remain trapped here underground forever and ever, or, to use the less melodramatic terms, until the last drop of your energy escapes you and you succumb to your own slow suffocation. It isn't a very pleasant way to go. But you'll forgive me if my sympathy is limited. You did bring this upon yourself, you know. You reap what you sow, and in your case you made a series of bad decisions which led you to your untimely demise. Now what do you want to do? Will you accept this fate of yours and rest in peace, or will you try to fight against it? Well, as I said in my last stream, I'm going to fight against it each time and get that ending that comes through, and then we will go back and accept our fate each time and go through and get all the death endings. Which I think should get us all the endings, but I will have to double check, but that's just how I'm going to do it at the minute. So we were going to fight against our fate. Are you not happy with the hand that fate has dealt you? Very well, I cannot blame you, it is quite a grim ending. I would not wish it upon my worst enemy, and you are rather dearer to me than that. Now why don't we give this another go? Just try not to be buried alive this time, I can only endure so much of your screaming. Your fate is once again in your hands. Now I wonder, which path will you take? Which obviously brings us to the last one. We're going to the castle. So you want to go to the castle? I will say I really enjoyed that one. Interesting logic from the gravedigger there. Can't say I appreciate the whole being buried alive thing, but you know, beggars can't be choosers. Anyway, I think this is the cannibalism ending, because this is the ending I've seen the most, which is kind of why I saved it for last. Good idea. All decent fairy tales tend to conclude in castles once their billiard put upon heroines are finally able to wed the handsome princes they once dreamed of. Why bother trying your luck with a shore which may very well be deserted, or the village, which will fill with dirty, barefoot peasants? It is far better to skip the suffering and go straight to the grand finale. That is very astute of you. I did not realize you had it in it to be so mercenary. I can only wonder what you will uncover during your moonlit meanderings. The night is far from over, and your adventures are only just beginning. I hope only that you have brushed up on your curtsies. They might come in handy when one is interacting with a sovereign. Grills can be so temperamental after all. If you fail to treat them with the prerequisite amount of respect, you might come to regret it. You follow the path which leads to the castle, supporting yourself on weary, aching legs which feel ready at a moment's notice to detach from your hips. You are a little more than a wisp of a girl, but you have been running for so very long, and your feet are so very numb. You feel like a great lumbering thing, clumsy and ungainly. Soles of your feet are screaming at you. You need to lie down, and quickly. You only hope as you continue to run that you will find a spare room available for you in the castle. You do not know what exactly will wait you at the castle, but you have visions as you run of a vast, opulent dwelling. This dwelling will surely be full of finely furnished rooms in which you might rest your weary head. There must also be a king and a queen inside the castle, you ponder, who'll be kind and wise, and what of their children? What of the princess? Every good castle must possess a princess who will take pity upon you and your plight. Imagine the face of this generous princess with ease, thanks to the fairy tales you read in abundance as a small child. The princess will be fair of hair and blue of eye, with soft pink lips pursed like rosebuds. Her limbs will be slender, her hands dainty and unsullied from physical labour, and the sensibilities will be sweeter than marzipan. She'll be kind to you and compassionate, just like an older sister. Do not know what older sisters are like, though, or younger sisters for that matter. You are only guessing. You are not a complete fool, however, despite your tendency to daydream, and you do have a few reservations. Monarchs do not, as you know from voracious reading, have the best track record when it comes to caring for their peasantry. Was there not a very famous queen who once said, with cavalier wave of her hand, that the hungry peasants in her kingdom should content themselves with cake if bread was not an option? I think that might be a bit of a misquote, but the point still stands. Though royals are supposed to grant their subjects succour in their time of need, that does not always happen. In fact, it very rarely happens. Kings and queens and princesses and princes are just people at the end of the day, and they are subject to the same caprices that all humans are. They can also be careless and selfish and inconsiderate. There is no guarantee that this mythical princess of your imagination will help you. Why, there is no guarantee that this mythical princess exists at all. Still, you must try. It is with this hope which keeps you going. You continue to run to the castle. It takes some time before you finally emerge from the woods, but finally you do it. How much time, you ask? I cannot answer that. Did I not say time had begun to lose all of its meaning? The forest is behind you now, at least, and all the awful nightmares which were dealt within it. It is still cold, though, and foggy, and very, very dark. The sun has yet to rise. You can see the moon more clearly now, though, as it hangs above your head, round as a pearl of orb or crystal ball. The moonlight shines down upon the castle, which looms in front of you like a cliffside. The stone edifice of the building is imposing, and it drowns you in darker shadow than the depths of the deepest ocean. The castle is not all dark, though, not like the night sky above it. When you crane your head, you can see there are lights flickering within in the narrow, stilted windows. It would appear that somebody is home. The king and the queen, perhaps? What of their servants? What, perhaps more pressingly, of their guards? You half expect as you stand there that armoured knights will accost you for daring to approach the castle of King and Queen so-and-so. Do you not know your place, foolish peasant girl with the dirty skirt? Begone with you! You are not, of course, a peasant. Your family is a wealthy one. Rather they were, before your father made a series of poor financial decisions. You do not look like a young lady right now, though, with your dirty face and your dirty skirt, which is torn at the hem. If any guards were to take you for a vagrant, it would not be surprising. But though you stand there differing, your filthy fingers hooked in front of your skirt, you don't hear any cries. Nobody sounds the alarm. Lights might be on inside the castle, but there's nobody outside the perimeter standing sentry. There is nobody to impede your entry, and the elaborate iron gates which are set into the vast stone walls about the castle's exterior are open, just a crack. Be a trivial matter to slip inside, there is nobody to stop you. Why are you trembling now, you silly thing? You've come so very far, it'd be an act of foolishness to turn around now. Go on, go! You inhale, perhaps an attempt to screw up your courage, which has at long last begun to fail you. Then you step forwards, slide between the wrought iron gates and stealthy as secretive as a thief, then cross the path which leads to the tall, imposing structure. The doomed doorway which leads to the castle itself, hewn from stone, is closed, but at the push of your palm it swings inwards. The door creaks alarmingly as it opens, the sound loud enough to split the silence like a thunderclap. You inhale at this and glance around, your eyes darting hither and thither. If there are any guards posted around the castle's grounds, they should have all been alerted by that sound. Will they come for you at long last? What will happen should they catch you? Will they throw you in the dungeons? It does not sound like a pleasant way to spend a night. At least you would have a roof over your head, though, and you would not have to keep walking. Feet really do ache. You stand there for an indeterminate amount of time, your heart pounding a panicked irregular rhythm in the base of your throat. No matter how much time elapses, no guards come. You are thankful for your good luck, though it does make you wonder. Where is everybody? Why is it almost as if all the people in the world have disappeared? Could you be the very last human left alive? You frown and press your palm against the back of the door. Push less cautiously this time, heedless of the loud sound which splits the silence. There is no point in worrying about the guards, not when they might very well be non-existent. Portraits. Your entry to the castle secured, you then take a step forwards. Door swinging shut behind you, and the resultant slam makes you jump. Did not expect it. Your heart knocks against your ribs, and with wild eyes you glance about. You are standing in a vast entrance hall made of stone which splits off into any number of passages. At the very end of the hall, meanwhile, there is a large elaborate staircase, one which seems to extend to the end heavens themselves. It is dark inside the hall, but there are numerous torches set in stone sconces in the stone wall, which are aflame. They offer some relief from the shadow. Didn't know they were called sconces. More you know, I guess. You can hear the faint sound of the wind outdoors as it moans against the castle's impervious walls, but you cannot hear any footsteps, not hear any voices, not more importantly hear any people. Maybe the castle is empty. If that is the case, though, then who lit these torches? It is a curious conundrum. You must throw up what remains of your courage, then cry out, addressing the empty hall in a timorous voice which fails to properly fill up the space. Hello, you say, your eyes wide. Is anybody there? Your voice echoes through the vast empty hall, but it is met yet again with silence. You cannot say you are too surprised, but it is somewhat disappointing. Not one to be deterred, you try again, your voice growing loud with each subsequent attempt. No matter how loud your voice, however, it fails to reach any ears. If anybody is here, they do not seem to be particularly sociable. That, or perhaps they simply cannot hear you. Could they be in another room? Yep, that must be it. You will never find that pretty fairy tale princess of your imagination if you stand idle, you know. It is time to get to work, put those legs of yours to good use. Not knowing what else to do, is there anything else you can do? You begin to explore. You examine the rooms first on the ground floor of the castle, which are similar scale to the impressive entrance hall, large and richly furnished but utterly unoccupied. It is sometimes a vainless meandering, encountering nobody save for the ghost of aeons past memorialized on portraits upon the wall. You muster the courage to ascend to the second floor. This floor too you examine, wandering through a seemingly endless series of hallways until at long last you find a door which is ajar. From between the crack in the door and the jamb you can see a light flickering light. Irregular, yes, but it is light nonetheless. Could it be from a fireplace? That would suggest then that this room is occupied, unlike all the others. Perhaps the kindly princess you dreamed of will be awaiting you in this room. It is with trembling hand that you press your hand against the door. You push it. You step inside the bedchamber which unveils itself to you. Slyly you stand in the threshold of the chamber. Much of your courage extinguished and gasp. The bedroom itself is gorgeous. It is a chamber so luxuriant not even the shadows can obscure the fine craft of the furniture within it, nor the rich patterns on the wall. The girl inhabiting the chamber, however, truly takes your breath away. Oh, we've found the princess! Yay! Sitting upon the velveteen sheets of the towering four-poster is a girl in sumptuous red gown who seems to be of an age like to you. Do not have a clear view of the girl's face. Her head is bowed, her gaze directed downwards at her lap. Let's get a better look at her. You can tell from her hair, however, that her slender calves which protrude from beneath the hem of her dress that she is very pretty. The girl's hair is golden, just like freshly cut wheat, but it is the red of her dress which truly captures your attention. She is so striking you cannot look away from her. The girl is not alone in her chambers either. She has a companion, though this companion is not half as so endearing as she. Her lap, perched upon her velvet skirt, is a doll. Cute doll. The doll's hair, like that of her mistress, is golden, though much of it is hidden beneath the bonnet. The girl is adjusting the china teacup held in the doll's tiny hand, while the rim of the cup glints in the light which exudes from the fireplace. If the girl is of a similar age to you, it seems strange that she would content herself by playing with dolls. She's not too old for it. This girl would be more at home, you decided, at a ball, wearing an extravagant gown, speaking with wealthy noblemen, perhaps even princes. She should not be sitting in what you presume is her bedchamber, adjusting a teacup in the doll's hand. But you are not afforded so much time to stare there, marveling at the girl because she turns. She raises her head. Then her eyes meet yours. You thought the girl pretty when you first observed her, sitting on the edge of the plush velveteen bed, examining her door. I must have twice in that sentence. No, oh god, her voice cracking off there. Now she's looking at you, however, her face illuminated by the flames in the grate. You can see that you were mistaken. She is not just pretty, she is beautiful. So much so it is breathtaking. She looks as though she stepped out of the pages of a picture book. She is simply too perfect to belong to this world. Perhaps she is some kind of vision, a waking dream, a hallucination. But no, she is none of those things. The doll in her lap is a cold, hard thing made of porcelain that is unflinching, reassuringly real. If she were, say, a mirage, surely, then she would not be able to handle physical objects such as this. It is strange, though. The doll, though immaculately made, looks oddly imperfect when compared to the girl who is holding it. She is so startlingly beautiful that she even puts man-made representations of feminine charm to shame. The sight of her makes you feel rather weak. You always have had a fondness for fair maidens, haven't you? You are rather hopeless when it comes to them, even worse than a knight-errant from the courtly legend. Your aesthetic appreciation is not particularly ladylike, but, well, it is not every day a girl encounters an elegant beauty like this, attired in red, illuminated by the firelight. I suppose I can forgive you for this rudeness, as too can the girl. She does not seem to be the type to hold a grudge. Oh, the girl says, in a voice surprisingly enough far less refined than her appearance. It's good to see you. I've been waiting. Has she? That is news to you. You blink perplexed at the response on the tip of your tongue, but you are unable to expel it into the ether. The girl is settling her doll aside, and she stands, the hem of her dress swishes about her legs. Nimble like a ballerina, she canvasses the space between you. Her room is so very large, there's quite a lot of space. Then takes your hands in her own. You must, the girl says, with her eyes glowing, be my new lady maid. It's been a while, but it's such a relief that you finally arrived. I knew you would. You'd never leave me alone, not when you knew how long I was waiting. Oh, I'm so happy. The girl's good mood is contagious, so much so you find yourself being swept away in it. You're tempted to accept any identity she may press upon you. You have never been a maid before, but you might not mind being this girl's maid. She does not seem like a poor mistress to serve, not if she is always this kind. Do not mask the confusion, however, which flickers across your face. You are not a good enough actress, and in any case, this is all happening too quickly. Why, you barely know this girl. Why is she being so very familiar? It is with a blank bovine eyes that you examine the girl, but your befuddlement is pronounced enough that even the girl, despite her good mood, notices it. She frowns. Then she says, her finger sliding away from your own, "Or am I mistaken? Are you not my new lady's maid after all?" The disappointment in the girl's face is abundant, so much so your heart clenches. You do not know, eh? She is still a stranger, but you are struck all of a sudden with an intense desire to appease her. You do not want to let her down. Though the thought is devastating. You were not aware, you told her, that she had applied to be her maid, but if that is what she wills, you would not be opposed to it. You pray that she forgives you, though, for discombobulation. You come from a distant country, and you have travelled for many miles. You know not where you are, and you do not know who she is. What? You don't know who I am? It is regrettable, you tell her, but no, you do not know her. Though that is no fault of her own. Why, you have spent such a long time running, you hardly even know yourself. Ah, so you're a fugitive then, from another country, I see. I won't pry into your past then, if you'd rather forget about it. I don't mind sharing my past with you, though. Everybody in this country knows who I am, after all, or at least they should. And this is quite the impressive boast. If it were to come from the lips of another, you would find it unpleasantly arrogant. You do not think, however, that this girl is trying to show off. You get the feeling instead that she is merely telling the truth. If you don't have the pleasure of knowing me, then allow me to do the honours. My father and my mother were the king and queen of this realm, and I am its princess. I've lived in this castle all my life, so I don't know much about the outside world, but I know that other countries do exist out there. I presume it is one of those foreign countries that you come from. It is very good to meet you. I've always wanted to talk to someone from overseas. It feels like quite an opportunity. The girl giggles at this, and you smile in response. You tell her, unthinkingly, that it is your pleasure really to meet her, or at least you mean to. You only get halfway through this remark when the full gravity of the girl has told you sinks in. You come to a stop. Then you stare. Did she just say she was a princess? Yes, that's right. I'm a princess, and one day I'll be a queen, after I've done a little bit of growing up. My ministers don't think I'm ready to run the country just yet, but I've been doing my best at my lessons. One day I'm sure I'll be the best queen there ever was. So she really is a princess. That makes sense, you suppose, given she lives in a castle, but it comes as a surprise regardless. You hadn't known before you entered this chamber that you were trespassing on a lady of such great renown. Why, if she willed it, she could have had you executed for your carelessness. An ugly red flush creeps up your face, a flush which is far more lurid than the princess's dress, as you look at your feet. Bashfully you stammer out in your address that you are very sorry for intruding upon her, and you hope that she can forgive you. Oh, it's all right. Think nothing of it. I don't mind, really. We all make mistakes, and anyway, you weren't to know. You said you weren't from around here. You nod your head in silent affirmation. It isn't a complete lie. You really are not from this country. You're not from this world at all. How wonderful! I'll look forward to picking your brain later. All of my servants come from the nearby village. Their tales are all the same, and so are their superstitions. I could do with a breath of fresh air. My last lady's maid told me I was too impetuous, but I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting a bit of adventure. Not that I've been ever afforded much of that. I've been shut up in here for so long I hardly ever get the chance to talk to other girls my age. My last lady's maid was older than me, and so was the one before her and the one before her. Some of the princess's fair mood seems to dissipate as she speaks, her expression turning by degrees into something rather more pensive. I haven't seen my old lady's maids in a while, or any of the other servants for that matter. They've all disappeared. I keep switching into the gravedigger's voice. No, she's a happy princess, not country gravedigger. Now this is quite curious. How could a household full of servants simply disappear? That I don't know. This castle was so full of servants once, my lady's maid and my undermaids and my scullery maids and my housekeeper and my cooks and my large routine of retainers. They're all gone now, though. I think my ministers must have sent them away. I don't know why they would have done that, though. They didn't explain it to me. But then again, they never explain anything to me. They still treat me like a little girl. It's so tiring. She said that her ministers sent her servants away. What of her parents, the king and queen? Would they not be the ultimate authorities in this castle's hierarchy? They would, yes, if they were still alive, but they're not. They died a long time ago. I was raised for most of my life by my servants. Oh, you answer and then you flush. You hadn't known. It's alright, you don't need to apologise. I'm just happy that I have you now. I was getting sick and tired of only having my dolls to speak to, and they aren't the best conversational partners. You can imagine, so yes. You doubt any doll, even one made by a talented artisan with an intelligent face indistinguishable from humans, would be very good at answering back. Oh no, they aren't. They're hopeless at it, really. They're all stony-lipped. You've no idea how much of a relief it is to see you. This castle is so big, and without my servants, it feels so very empty. It gets so lonely here. Now that is an interesting term of phrase. It catches inside your head like a burr. Have you heard it before? Do not have much time to ponder this, however, because the princess is speaking anew in that curiously conversational manner of hers, which does not seem particularly princessy. Maybe she learnt how to speak from her servants. That would explain her consonants are so unrefined. Oh, but listen to me yamming on again. It's a bad habit. I really must put a stop to it. You're probably tired, dear one, from your travels. Would you like me to show you to your room? Yes, the princess announces before you can say anything. In reply, do you think I'll do just that? I might show you around a bit around the castle, though. It's like a maze, and I wouldn't want you getting lost. You'll be staying here for quite some time, after all. The princess then hastens to take you on a tour of her home. Fortunately, she does not show you all the rooms in her abode, and neither does she offer you overly long descriptions as to the few rooms that she shows you are used for. She does, however, pause by the kitchens, where she offers you some victuals. Once the growling in your belly has been satisfied, the princess then resumes her journey. She leads you down a dark, twisting hallway made up of a series equally dark, twisting steps until she arrives at long last before a door. The princess pushes the door aside summarily, thus permitting you entrance to a small, humble bedchamber. The chamber in itself is not as opulent as the grand bedroom in which the princess resides, which is resplendent of four-poster in its richly patterned walls. The room's ceiling is not as high, and the singular bed shoved against the wall is thin and narrow. The walls are as unassuming beige, and the floor beneath you soles is of warped wood. There is a malodorous scent which hangs in the room, one of disuse and general decay. You get the feeling that nobody has slept in this room for quite some time. That might explain why it feels so very cold in here. Though, if the princess' tour of her castles taught you anything, it is that it is very cold in every room of her abode. Now here we are, the final stop in our tour. This will be your room, dear one. I hope it's to your liking. The princess, despite her exalted status, looks somewhat uneasy as she observes you, her eyes upturned like those of a loyal dog. Is she concerned about your reaction to this room? Perhaps she is afraid that you'll turn your nose up at her kindness. For a princess, she is awfully eager to please. This unexpected contrast between the princess's lofty title and her ingratiating attitude makes you smile. This room is rather scantily, yes, but when it comes to its contents, but it's more than passable. It has a roof and four walls, and though it is cold, you fancy you will feel warmer once you slip beneath the bed sheets. The room is not quite as fancy as your dormitory at the conservatoire, neither is it so large, but it does have one glaring improvement over your previous lodgings. You will not be expected to share it with anybody else. There is only one bed in this room, and this bed belongs to you. You think that the peace and the quiet will do you a world of good. You tell the princess as much, and she smiles. That's good. I was worried you wouldn't like it. I know it isn't much to look at, but it's one of the nicest servants' rooms we have in the castle. Most of the maids sleep beneath the roof in this teeny tiny room, which is all cramped. There's 10 beds up there, and they're all so close together, there's barely any room to pass between them. I thought it was perfectly ghastly when I saw it the last time I went up there, not that I was supposed to be up there. It was a rainy day and I couldn't go outdoors, so I was doing a bit of exploring. If the housekeeper had known I'd been skulking around, I don't think she would have been the best pleased. Well, in any case, nobody sleeps up there anymore. Scullery maids are all gone now. I couldn't put you up there, though, in the attic with all those empty beds. I didn't think it'd be very cheery. You're not just a scullery maid, you're my lady's maid. That means you deserve good lodgings. It'd be an insult to offer you anything less than this. Now it's getting late. You'll have to forgive me for rabbiting on. I've heard it's something I tend to do. It's a bad habit, one unbecoming for a lady. The housekeeper's warned me enough times. You reassure the princess to the contrary, smiling as you do. I don't mind if she talks too much, and that is better than not talking at all. Her affable nature makes it easier to spend time with her, manners be damned. You're always scolded too back in the conservatoire for your behaviour. You know full well how aggravating it can be to be upbraided not for any particular misdemeanour, but for being yourself. Well, I'm glad you understand, the princess answers with a giggle. Really should be off, though. It's bad manners to keep you, especially when you look so sleepy. Get some rest and we can talk more tomorrow, if you don't mind my ceaseless prattle. I'm glad you seem to appreciate it, at least. Though I'm sure you'll get tired of it eventually. All my old maids did. The princess departs, and in her absence you take a seat upon the bed, your new bed. You cannot help but think that this is all happening very quickly. It does not seem like very long ago that you were still in the forest running for your life amongst the tall imposing trees with their gnarled, grasping branches. The forest might as well be a distant memory now, though. You are indoors, inside a castle no less, and you have been given a room in which to sleep in your clothes that you might wear. It seems premature still to declare that you are out of the woods, and in a metaphorical sense, I mean, but things certainly could be worse. You force yourself to stand on legs which feel too weary to support you and change into nightclothes hanging in the wardrobe. Nightclothes do not fit you perfectly, but you are too tired to care about that. You are too tired to care about much of anything. You retreat to the bed and slide beneath its sheets. Then you let your eyelids fall shut. You exhale. And lulled by the breeze which blows outdoors, you fall asleep. You are so very tired. Your sleep is a deep, dark one, darker even than the furthest abysses of the nighttime. Like the nighttime sky, however, which shimmers with the stars, your sleep is not devoid of these prismatic fragments you humans call dreams. Though in this case, I'd rather think your nocturnal imaginations are worth rather more than that. They are not dreams as they to which your slumbering mind is subjected. You know that they are not. Otherwise your body would not be so very cold, not so clammy. The images that flicker beneath your closed eyelids like ghostly images in the fuck. In a okay. The images that flicker beneath your closed eyelids like the ghostly images in the Finnick soap were not conjured from your own mind. They were instead taken from your memories. You are not merely dreaming, you are remembering. You remember the girls who slept in your dormitory and how they always hastened to use the shower first, so you were last for breakfast. You remember how when you finally did arrive in the dining hall, the most desirable morsels had already been snapped up by the girls who got there earlier. You struggled to find a seat, and once you did, you got your hands on some food because nobody ever wanted to sit with you. The girls all acted like you were a leper, save for when they wanted favours. They never asked for these favours, mind, for why would they? To them, your father's prestige did not matter. They were all wealthy ladies too, and many of them wealthier than you. When everybody has the airs and graces of a princess, how is anybody supposed to stand out? You stood out the least in your class, perhaps because you were the one of the smallest, the frailest, the sickliest, who always came down with colds in the winter. Your poor health did not stop the other girls from treating you as a servant, though, when they remembered that you existed, of course. It was your lot in life as you dwelt within the stone walls of the conservatoire to carry school bags across the field like a pack mule. Then come the evening girls in your dormitory had you sewing on missing buttons and ironing out the creases and wrinkles in their uniforms. If there was not a job that needed performing, you would always be asked. But these girls did not ask you. That would have been too civilized. They ordered you instead, and as they ordered you, they laughed at you. They laughed at you and they laughed and they laughed. And the laughter hurt, but it did hurt considerably less than the kicks did, and the slaps and the pinches. Once during an embroidery lesson, one of your classmates had an accident with her sewing scissors. She stumbled, or really she pretended to, and before you knew it, the silvery blades of your scissors were embedded in your left palm. This happened quite some time ago, when you were even littler than you are now, but you can still remember it. It hurt a lot. The scissors were sharp and they perforated your skin, not all the way down to the bone, but enough to bleed. Your wounds bled bright red like strawberry jam all over your embroidery. And then when your professor saw it, she shrieked. Her face turned pale as though... Her face turned as pale as way, and she looked for a few moments as though she might faint, though you were the one who was in pain. Your professor looked at your face. She could not bear to look at your hand, and demanded to know why you could not have been more careful. Her tone had been an accusatory one, almost as if you had stabbed yourself with your scissors to goad you. The pain in your hand hurt, but the gills from your persecutors hurt all the more. They never were punished for that. Perhaps your professor did not care enough to punish them. Perhaps she, like everybody else, thought it was all your fault. The wound, when all was said and done, was not too deep, did not need any stitches. It healed well enough in time and on its own, though still left a scar. A white raised thing like a crescent moon. You still have that scar. You do not know how much blood you lost. It seemed like a lot back in the classroom. You could smell it in the air, sharp as iron, but it could not be that much, evidently. If your wounds had been more serious, perhaps your professor might have cared. Perhaps your classmates too would have felt some modicum of guilt over what they did. But this seems very unlikely. You know that your blood meant nothing to your classmates. Why should it? If you meant next to nothing, then your blood in your veins, if such a thing was possible, even more inconsequential. You feel disorientated when you awake at long last with the rising of the sun. Do not remember what you dreamt, but you do not think that your dreams were of any particularly pleasant nature. If they were, your heart would not be clamoring so. Ill at ease, you glance around. You are lying in a narrow bed in an unremarkable room, one with dull beige walls and a warped wood floor. Where exactly are you? This does not look like your dormitory in the conservatoire, nor less it has shrunk threefold overnight. You barrow your furrows as you attempt to recall the events of the night prior, till with a gasp it kicks. Yeah, gasp. Until with a gasp it all clicks into place. You remember now. You are running through the woods trying to escape from... You shudder. You do not want to think of what you were trying to escape from. You presume that you must have given your hunter the slip, though, because you are still in one piece, awake and alert enough to face the dawning of a new morning. You still have all your limbs, and your facial features appear to be in the correct configuration. That is more than enough to be getting along with. You look to the foot of your bed, then blink, bemused at your discovery. You can see lying upon the sheet a garment, 2 garments actually, of black and white folded in neat white squares. What could that be? A maid's outfit? If so, it would not be too surprising. You can now recall your visit with the princess the night prior and her assertions that you must be her lady's maid. Well, if that's the role she wants you to assume, you have no qualms with it. It is far preferable to the other roles you have played last night, that of a startled quarry running from its pursuer. You press your fingers against the humble maid's attire. It feels surprisingly soft to the touch, not coarse like you expected. These clothes are rather fine. Did the princess put them here? If so, that is all the more reason to wear them. You are not churlish enough to deny her hospitality. You rise from your new bed, then undress yourself, unbuttoning the front of your plain white nightgown and setting it aside. The task is accomplished, you clad yourself in your new attire, black, white, and eminently sensible. You feel very far away from the girl you once were. Your face might be the same as always, but something within you seems to have changed. You are no longer a student, not as long as you mean to reside within the princess's castle. You would far rather be her servant. Assured of your newfound identity, you retreat from your chambers and make your way to your mistress's bedroom. The castle is a large one with many, many rooms and many, many hallways to connect them, and for a brief while you find yourself horrendously lost. You cannot remember where the princess's bedroom is. You are beginning to feel rather disorientated when, to your relief, your eyes snag upon a stairwell which looks rather familiar. Could this be the way? You ascend these stairs like your foot will cushioned by the plush carpet which lines them, then find your way down the very same hall you traversed the night prior. Your memory does not earlier than the princess' bedroom ought to be. Yes, it is here. You rap upon the door but receive nothing in the way of a response. Is the princess still abed? You wonder briefly whether you ought to wait until she risen on her own accord, but no. The sun is high in the sky and it would be a shame to let the princess sleep through the day. You ought instead to rouse her. That seems like the sort of duties a lady's maid should attend to. You enter the princess's bedroom and glance about. Her room looks much the same as you remember it from the night prior, though the ceiling seems even higher when viewed in the warm morning's light. You can see now that there are fewer shadows to impede your view. How very opulent your young mistress's abode is. Her mire is large and imposing as is the grate in it, which will be expected to keep the fire lit during the nights. The princess herself, meanwhile, is curled on her side beneath the sheets, looking rather less grandiose than her title would suggest. She is attired in a nightgown adorned with frills, and her hair is split across her pillows like spilled gold. In her slender arms, meanwhile, held to her chest is a doll, the very same one she was corsetting last night. You suppose this doll must be her favourite. Idly you wonder what the doll's name is, but you do not suppose it matters all that much. It is time to wake your mistress. You call out to the princess, but she is largely unresponsive. Her eyelashes are still sewn tightly shut and her lips pursed in a slumber. You purse your lips too and sigh. Well, nobody's ever said your job would be easy. Once again you call to the princess, and this time she replies. Her response is not a favourable one, however. Yeah, she sighs, then turns away from you, her doll clutched to her chest. Just give me a little longer. The princess sounds so enfeebled, but you do not take pity on her. If you have learnt anything from the conservatoire, save for knowledge pertaining to the respiratory tracts of fish, it is that one must be cruel to be kind. Do not think this adage was practised with great success in the conservatoire, but perhaps it will have more impact upon the princess. You tell her once again to wake up, more sternly this time. You will not let her sleep, for she has slept long enough already. It is very slovenly, really, to be abed at such an hour. Oh, the defeated princess sighs. All right, I can see that, and I can't twist you around my little finger. I'm up, you don't need to nag me. Once you have roused the princess from her bed, you have to put her doll to one side and you set up her toilette. Will it? You aid the princess in brushing of her hair, a chore to which she submits willingly, like a cat might allow its fur to be brushed. You allow yourself to ponder as you run the bristles of the princess's brushes through her hair, how wonderfully soft it feels against your skin. But a curious query from the princess. Are you all right, dear one? Brings you back to your senses. You are ever lost in thought, Thriller? You look lively now. You wouldn't want the princess to catch wind of your salacious thoughts, would you? I thought you had learnt your lessons about that already. Suitably chastened, you finish with the princess's hair, then set the brush aside. Now that the princess's tresses have been taken care of, you must start on her attire. The princess remains seated upon the edge of her bed, looking up at your aspirants. She does not ask you to avert your eyes, nor does she make any motion of divesting herself of her nightgown. It really does seem that she expects to undertake this task on your own. Is that all right? You ask the princess as much you would not wish to impinge upon her modesty, but she only laughs. Yes, that's all right. It's what you're supposed to do if you're my lady's maid. I'm used to being dressed and undressed. I'm not a bit squeamish about it. She might not be squeamish about it, but you are. You have never seen a naked woman before, excepting yourself. Even then, however, you've always dressed and undressed furtively, not wanting to examine your body for longer than is strictly necessary. You've never much liked the way you look. You make a few more mumbled objections, but the princess sweeps them to one side easily. It's all right. I might be a princess, but we're both people underneath all our clothes. I doubt we look that much different. You're not sure about that. You have not yet seen the princess unadorned, but you already know to look at her face that you are different. She is much, much prettier than you are. But she is waiting, and you do not wish to keep her any longer. You steady your nerves. Then you reach out with trembling hands and begin to undo the buttons which run down the princess's nightgown. You work as quickly as you are able to, which given how badly your hands are shaking, is not very. I do like this shape. I do like this change to clouds just to cover the modesty. You fumble with a couple of the buttons, flinching as you do so. Princess, however, seems blissfully unaware of what exactly you are doing, or not doing, for your fingers have begun to seize up with the front of her nightgown. She is not even looking at you. Instead, her gaze is directed beyond your shoulders to the windowsill and the sky beyond it. It isn't particularly sunny, but I don't think it's too cold outside. Going for a walk might not be a bad idea. What do you think, dear one? You think you adore, and you'd like to finish undressing the princess as soon as possible so you can make progress on dressing her again. The sight of all this exposed skin is bad for your heart. Fortunately, you are able to make quick work of the princess's nightgown despite your initial mishaps, spurred on perhaps by your anxiety. You bid the princess to stand, which she does, and neatly she steps out of her nightgown, her motions once again as graceful and fluid as a dancer's. This task completed, you search hurriedly, worriedly for the princess's red dress. Where is it? You cannot find it. Sweat begins to prickle on the back of your neck. The palms meanwhile feel uncomfortably clammy. Moments pass awkwardly and easily as you search the princess standing there, all as naked as the day she was born. Why did you not find her dress before you stripped her of her night one? What a fool you are. The princess, noting your panic, giggles and says, Are you looking for my dress? Yes, you reply, your face flushed. That is what you were doing. I thought so. I did wonder before you started addressing me why you'd not asked where it was. Maybe it slipped your mind. It had slipped your mind, Jess, to your shame. You were too busy trying not to fixate upon the princess's bared skin to think about how best to conceal it. My dress is in my armoire, the princess, glancing over to the aforementioned piece of furniture. That armoire of hers is an intricately carved wooden structure large enough for you to estimate to fit it. Enough dresses to attire a whole ballroom's worth of princesses. I like to wear the red one, it's my favourite. Would you be a dear and fetch it for me? I don't want to rush you, but it is rather cold in here, especially when I'm still naked. She raises a good point. You turn away from the princess and make your way to her armoire. Once there, you open those wooden doors and peruse the clothes hanging within. Just as you expected. Inside that wardrobe lies numerous dresses, all of them finely sewn and decorated with no shortage of ribbons, lace, and iridescent pearls. Find the princess's red dress soon enough and then hurry to her side. With your spoils in hand, you hurriedly dress her, concealing once again the princess's pale skin beneath layers upon layers of soft red velvet. She is easier to look at now, you think, with her skin concealed. That might have been the most nerve-wracking task you have ever had to accomplish, even more so than your perilous escape through the foggy forest. Why, it seems a small miracle that you can still remember how to breathe. Ah, that's much better. Thank you, dear one, for your help. You've not been here for a full day, but I wonder what I'd do without you. Shyly, you assure the princess that you did nothing, really. Nothing beyond your job. Did not do anything incredible. And in any case, being complimented by someone so pretty is embarrassing. Oh, don't be like that. I want to compliment you. Why shouldn't I when you've been so helpful? Be rude not to, and anyway. I think you're very pretty too. Oh my. Your face flushes from this more deeply than ever before. You ought to count yourself lucky, really. What with all this excessive blushing that the princess does not possess any vampiric tendencies. You are making yourself quite the easy target. Now, the princess declares, why don't we go for a walk? It's a nice enough day and I get so very bored being cooped up inside. You can't think of any particular objections to raise to this remark, and you think the princess might have a point. The castle, though expansive, is somewhat stifling. The walls are very thick and put you in the mind of a crypt. With your acquisitions assured, the princess quits her chamber with her posture elegant and her gait unhurried. She seems not to walk as she navigates her way through the seemingly endless hallways of her home, but to float like a cloud. The hem of her dress swishes around her leg, and her hair shifts like a shroud. The castle's courtyard, meanwhile, is sadly lacking in comparison to the princess's beauty. The courtyard is fenced in by the castle's walls, which look, in the stark midday light, all an imposing, faceless soldier standing sentinel. Though the sun is out, it is not particularly bright, and neither is it particularly warm. The courtyard itself, meanwhile, is in a state of disarray. The flower beds are in shambles, all overgrown with weeds. It is rather depressing. The princess's castle might be grand in scale, but the courtyard itself is simple, hemmed in to a claustrophobic degree like a coffin. The princess, however, seems not to share your dolorous mood. She instead looks elated by her newfound surroundings, her smile unwavering. She instead looks elated. Repeat. She gambols around like a lamb, flitting hither and thither as she examines the weed-infested flower beds. Her frolicking comes to a cease, however, by a bush. One who is full of bright red roses. Oh, how very pretty! Do you not think they're gorgeous, dear one? The flowers are not too disappointing, you suppose? They make for a fine spectacle, in fact, a welcome splash of colour when contrasted to the dullness and drabness which permeates the rest of the courtyard. Though the other flowers in the beds are wilted, withered things, it is not so for these roses. They are rich, bright red, just like blood, their heads so full they seem to almost droop beneath the weight of their own engorged petals. They are pretty in a sense, but there is something unsettling about them too. Something that is almost obscene. How did these roses become so very red? What has been sustaining them? Rose food, good stuff. Could it be possible that these roses have been draining the life from the other flowers which are struggling to grow within this garden? It is a fanciful thought, but... Oh, they are simply design. Looking at roses has always lifted my spirits. They really are my most favourite flowers. I simply must pick some of them. Perhaps I can use them to decorate my bed chambers. It could use a bit of colour. The princess reaches out to pluck some of these roses free from its resting place amongst its brethren. You watch her with your breath rated anxious that this gesture might result in perforated fresh and bright red blood. But the princess is not as clumsy as you fear. Of course she is not. Who did you think she was? You? Rather than worrying about other people, you'd be better served if you worried more about yourself. The princess holds up the newly pilfered roses to her nose and inhales, eyelids falling shut as the flower's sweet scent washes over her. A few moments of silence pass. Then the princess begins to toy with the pale petals which adorn the flower's crown. Now, let me see. I wonder what fate has in store for me. She loves me. The princess plucks the petals from the flower's overburdened head. She loves me not. The princess continues with this childish incantation, all the while stripping her rose slowly and methodically of its petals. These petals flutter about the princess like bloody snow. The princess's voice, meanwhile, echoes throughout the courtyard, even more melodic than the strains of the Canula. She loves me not. She loves me not. The princess's figure hovers over the final petal which crowns her newly denuded flower. With a triumphant smile, she declares, "She loves me, I knew it." You watch the princess amused by her girlish good cheer. The little mantra she has been reciting is one you are familiar with. The girls at the conservatoire also used to engage in this little game. The younger ones, at least, who believed that a fairy or fairy-tale prince would whisk them away. You might have participated in this game yourself when you were a child yourself, but you never pinned your hopes and dreams on some handsome prince. Your interest in princesses had always been minimal. When it comes to fair princesses, though, well, that is a different matter altogether, isn't it? Pleasantly, you ask the princess whose love it is she wishes to court, a query which makes the princesses giggle. "Oh, dear one, who else would I be thinking of? Naturally, I was thinking of you." Naturally. She says it so easily, as though you ought to have suspected as much, and indeed part of you did. You wanted to believe, yet part of you was afraid to. Did not want to be arrogant enough to assume that the princess might care for your affections. You begin to blush, your cheeks almost as red as roses, while the princess laughs. She laughs and she laughs and she laughs, her voice clear and sweet like a nightingale's song, as though you are the funniest thing she has ever seen. You never liked being laughed at when you dwelt within the walls of the conservatoire, but it was different with her. You have not known her for long, but you're already entranced by her, ensnared. She has you wrapped around her little finger. Oh my! The princess's laughter tapers off into a series of giggles as, smiling, she wipes her eyes with the back of her hand. That was quite amusing diversion, but I've just had an idea. You look at the princess curiously. What idea? Why can't you tell? Not even begin to guess. I just thought of that all this watching must be boring, the princess says, tossing the rose's strip stem carelessly to the ground. You should give it a try. Please do, it will be fun. The princess retrieves a second rose from the bush, deftly snapping it between her fingers and offers it to you. I want to see what fate has in store for you too. You smile at the princess, touched by her enthusiasm. Indulging in childless games like this might not be the best use of your time, but the princess looks very determined, not to wish to hurt her. What could be the harm, really, in consenting? The only real casualty of this game would be one singular rose, the rose that the princess is holding towards you. You reach out, meaning to accept the princess's offering, but oh no! You're clumsy and you seize the stem of the rose with a touch too much strength. The head of the rose might be pretty, but there is more to the rose than its bright red flowers. Roses have thorns too, a fact that you are now painfully reminded of. Pain flares through your fingertips and you gasp. Take a step back and the hem of your skirt swishing around your ankles. Your finger is stinging and so are your eyes. You ought to have been more careful. Why were you so stupid? Oh, you poor dear, you're bleeding, the princess exclaims, alarmed. Then she frowns. This is all my fault. If I had not suggested this silly game, this never would have happened. Please let me take care of you. And how is she going to do that? Perhaps she means to take a handkerchief from her pocket with which she might staunch her wounds. Princesses tend to carry handkerchiefs with them, don't they? Silken ones. How else would they give brave knights tokens of their gratitude once the aforementioned knights have successfully slain dragons? Princesses can hardly dispense kisses as favours, it's simply not done. This is what you always thought, but... Please hold still, this might sting a little bit. The princess is anything but ordinary. Rather than take a handkerchief out of her pocket, she instead closes her white slender fingers around your hand. Carefully, as though she is handling a precious object, she raises your hands. Her eyes are fixed all while on the beads of startlingly crimson blood which are oozing luridly from your wound. She licks her lower lip, and she dips her head. She parts her mouth, and with a soft sigh which borders on the sensuous, she slips your injured digit between her teeth. Oh my. That's a very cool photo. So much for princesses not dispensing kisses as tokens of appreciation. This might not be a conventional kiss, but feels intimate regardless. Most startlingly so. The princess's lips, which are as red as any roses, are enclosed around your index finger. You can feel the warmth of the princess's mouth about your skin and the wetness of it. These sensations make your whole body quake. Did not expect this. Tremendously in a voice which wavers, you ask the princess what is it she is doing. Oh! The princess glances up at you, her mouth still enclosed around your finger. Didn't I tell you I'm trying to stop the bleeding? Yes, you gathered as much, but... Is there any problem? I'm not making you uncomfortable, am I? It is not, you say, that she is making you comfortable per se. This is rather awkward. Should not expect it, that is all. And you should not worry about this is unhygienic. Unhygienic? The princess blinks. She is the very picture of innocence, which is funny, really, given your fingers are still nettled against her tongue. I don't know what you mean by that exactly. But I've heard this is the best way to take care of cuts. My nursemaid used to do this for me when I was a child. It's what you're supposed to do. And you ask her voice catching in your throat, did her nursemaid keep staunching her wounds with her mouth when she grew older? Well, no. But my nursemaid was dismissed when I was 8 years old. That's the normal way of things. I had my lady's maids look after me then. I've sat too comfortably, my foot's gone dead. This always happens. I think I'd stop sitting in such a gay manner, but you know. How very interesting. And did they ever clean her wounds like this? No, the princess said, smiling mischievously. Because I'm not clumsy enough to cut myself, silly. Now that was quite the sharp retort. You did not expect it. Your face turns even redder if such a thing is possible, though this might perhaps be to your benefit. With some luck, all of your blood will flow to your face rather than your fingers, and your bleeding will stop. Has it stopped? The injury was not a deep one. There should be no need for the princess to keep on suckling, but she still is. You are not accustomed to intimacy of this nature. It is making your heart flutter. If the princess knew what her mouth was doing to you, you are sure she would not be so very familiar. Feel quietly, crushingly confident that she would scorn you for your feelings and deem them unnatural. It would not be the first time. At this point, you should be used to rejection. It still stings, though. It stings much, much more than any of the thorns on any rose could. The day is fast following your misadventures in the rose garden in a relaxed and hurried sort of manner. Your mad dash through the forest is beginning to feel like a distant memory, so much so you can scarcely recall the raw, naked fear you once felt as you fled for your life. My foot really fucking hurts. Why do I let my foot go dead? Because now it hurts. There is no running to be had while you're working for the princess. You would have nowhere else to run, and even in an event there is no reason to run. The shadows which once tormented you at long last have begun to recede. You can scarcely recall as you lay down in your bed the pretty cruelties you were subjected to by your classmates at the conservatoire. They no longer matter. Your attention is focused not upon yourself but upon the princess. The more time you spend with her, the more you come to care for her. You have become quite besotted with her, but you are yet to realize it. Well, I never. How very ignorant can one girl be of her own feelings? The princess is not half so ignorant as you are, though, despite having spent her whole life within the palace's walls. The weight of her own feelings are not unknown to her, and during one stormy night she chooses to make them known to you. You are in the princess chambers later. Perhaps than you ought to be, latter than is strictly appropriate. It is dark outside, and there is little save the light of the moon to alleviate it. That and the fire which crackles in the grate. You have only just finished stoking that very fire, and now you rise. You look to the princess who is lying in her bed, and you bid her a good night, as you have for many nights past. The neat curtsy you turn to leave, but the princess's plaintive voice gives you pause. Wait, dear one, do not go, not just yet. Reflect, you pause and look back at the princess. Though she is smiling, her expression is unusually wan. Is she alright? Oh, I'm sure I'll be fine. It's just nights like this, you know, which make me feel a little out of sorts. And what you ask does she mean by that? Only that it is very cold and very dark. It is very windy besides. I'm afraid there'll be a storm later. It was awfully cloudy early when we went out for our walk. The princess is not mistaken about that. The sky when pair of you promenaded about the gardens early was grey and steely, the wind bitingly cold. You can hear the wind rattling mournfully against the panes in the princess's bedchamber. The princess's castle is built of stone and is well fortified, but even with the fire it is rather cold. You do not like to think of how much chillier by comparison it would be in your own humble bedchamber, which is not fortunate enough to have its own fireplace. It might sound childish, but I've always found it hard to sleep on stormy nights like this. They make me feel uncomfortable. You look at the princess with no small degree of sympathy. No longer clad in her bright red dress, she looks oddly, uncommonly vulnerable. Will she really be alright, all alone in that oversized bed in a high-ceilinged bedchamber? You know it's very silly of you to contemplate such a query. Why would she not be alright? There is nobody in the castle to hurt her, but still you fret for her. As her lady's maid, it is your job to fret for her. You would never want your mistress to feel unhappy. You ask the princess what it is she would like to have you do, and the princess perks up at this, pleased perhaps that you are taking the initiative. I wouldn't like to take up too much of your time when it's so very late. But would you mind sitting with me a little while longer, and reading to me, provided that you can, of course? This is a fair enough question, but your pride bristles regardless. Hastily you reassure the princess that yes, of course you can read. You are a poor student in many aspects at the conservatoire, but you had something of a gift when it came to the literary arts. Well, I don't, with that pronunciation. Reading books is all you've ever been good at. Oh, I see, I suppose I should have known. You are so incredible. I sometimes wonder if there is anything you can't do. The princess's high praise make you flush. Awkwardly you look away. Being able to read, you reassure her, is no such great feat. Perhaps it isn't, where you're from, but it is here. Very few of my old servants could read, and they certainly couldn't read the books that I like. This piques your interest. Intrigued, you ask the princess what books exactly she likes. Well, I'm glad you asked. I'm fond of fairy tales, you see. Old ones from centuries past. I have a collection of them here, the princess says, indicating a book at her bedside table, as thick as a mortuary slab. The book is old, though, and the bindings are weak. The pages brittle, the writing woefully old-fashioned. I didn't trust any of my past servants with that book, but I think you do a good job breathing life into those old stories. Would you mind reading one to me for just a brief while? Please, dear one, oh please. The princess's request seems a simple one, expressed sweetly, so much so you have no reason to refuse her. You take a seat beside the princess upon her luxurious bed, which sinks beneath your weight. Then you retrieve the leather-bound book which is resting upon her bedside table and spread it open. The pages of the book are very brittle, like the princess said, and the bindings of the book are loose. You can feel it in the heft of the book, manifold pages, the weight of the ages concealed within it. How old is this book? Perhaps it is as old as the castle in which it resides. It is with a quiet voice, hesitant at first, that you begin to read to the princess. A tale of courtly love which culminates in a lavish wedding ceremony. All the while, as you read, the princess listens to you, entrapped, hanging on, or so it seems, upon your every word. Once you reach the final phrase embossed upon the pages of this aged tome, and they lived happily ever after, the princess sighs as though this tale has touched her very soul. Would that be there a handsome prince to marry me, she says somberly, or better yet, a beautiful princess? At this point, I think I would even set for a lowly scullery maid. You blush at the idle remark and mumble softly that this would not be proper. The storm outside is still squalling, and you've never been one to raise your voice. Do not expect, therefore, that the princess will overhear you, but she does. She observes you and her head resting against the pillow and says, "And what would be the problem with that, As mermaid, shouldn't my happiness come before any silly ideas of propriety?" "Of course," you reply, "but for a princess to marry a scullery maid?" "You're still hung up about that," the princess titters. "Don't pay it too much heed, I'm just talking to myself." As if anything like that would ever happen when there is no priest around who would officiate it. You think there are greater issues with the princess's plan than the lack of priest, though she does present a good point. The castle is an empty one. Even if the princess were to find someone that she loves, there would be no one to make such a wedding official. You cannot help but you feel like you have avoided a good deal of nuisances. But by the same token, do you not feel a touch disappointed? Well, never mind. "That was a nice story," the princess says. "I'm not very sleepy yet, and it's still storming outside. Won't you read me one more?" "You would not mind," you replied, "but it is getting late. You really ought to return to your own bedchambers." "I know, but can't you find in your heart to read one story to me? Just one? You can choose the short one. I won't complain." You have some doubts about that, but, as before, you cannot resist the princess's demands. It is not, you think, because she is a princess, though that is, of course, part of it, but because she is. Well, Radiant. You would not, you think, as you turn to the next story recounted in this aged compendium, want to upset her. You'd rather cut out your own tongue. You read another story to the princess, which is in a similar vein as the last one. Impossible adventures culminating as their close and a happy marriage. The tale delights the princess just as much as the tale you read prior, and she begs for another one, and then another. One-bedroom story soon becomes 5, and then, even when the candles which flicker on the princess's bedtime is close to guttering out, the princess is not satisfied. Like a grasping, greedy child, she has never heard of moderation. When she wants something, she seeks to glut herself with it, her only request is that of more. If she was less comely, perhaps her inability to hear to the word of no would seem as a character defect. The princess is very comely, however, and so, when she makes her next request, you almost agree offhand without considering the ramifications. I think I could go to sleep now, but the storm is still raging. I feel lonely on my own in this big empty bed, so... I know! The princess's eyes light up at the night sky in a thunderstorm. Why don't you sleep with me? You stare at the princess, your eyes wide as goose eggs. Slowly you think. Then just as slowly you bid her to repeat herself. Didn't you hear me? The princess squeals. Maybe you've been so busy cleaning up after me you've neglected to clean out your own ears. I said, no, dear one, would you like to sleep with me? If that is the question she truly means to ask, then it's easy enough to answer. Of course you would like to sleep with her. It would be an honour. But would it really be alright for you to accept such an invitation? It might be a gross breach of protocol, surely, for a lowly domestic such as yourself to share a bed with a princess. You sit upon the princess's bedside, fretting while she observes you with wide, beseeching eyes. She is waiting. Well, what's the matter, dear one? Why do you tarry so? Could it be? The princess's lower lip begins to tremble. Don't you want to lie with me after all? The sorrow present in the princess's voice and in her face makes you feel awfully guilty. Hurriedly you console her. You tell her in no uncertain tone that she truly wishes to partake in your company, then you have no qualms with it. Why would you? Well then, don't just stand there dilly-dallying, silly. Come and join me, come. And that is what you do after returning briefly to your own chamber to change into your nightgown. Once dressed, you waste no time in returning to a virtuous princess's side. She is already lying in her glorious four-posted bed, awaiting your return as though you're a knight-errant gone away to slay some wicked dragon. The princess giggles when she sees you. In your haste to change, you have made a hash of your buttons, and she bids you to come closer. Let me fix that for you, silly. Oh no, you say you couldn't possibly let you do that, but I am a servant after all. Should not be your job to dress her. Maybe so, the princess says, but I don't mind a bit of role reversal, it makes things more fun. Try a few more refuges and spit in plain. The princess summarily disregards all of them. Quite at the princess's mercy, she might be even more stubborn than you are. You capitulate into her demands. You let the princess unbutton the front of her nightdress, then rebutton them so the fabric of your plain gown is drawn shut. Satisfied with her handiwork, she has very elegant hands. The princess draws back and pats the mattress beside her. Now come in, it must be horribly cold out there. These sheets are so warm. Coyly the princess smiles. And so am I. Warm yourself as you slide into the bed beside the princess. Your face is as red as the crown the princess often wears, as red as the thorn roses in the castle's grounds. All the while your heart is fluttering. Does the princess know what an effect she is having on you? Surely she must. How could anyone be so blind? There, the princess exclaims once your body is lying beside hers. That is so much better. Do you feel cozy now, dear one? You swallow, and with a shaky voice you reassure her. Yes, you are very cozy, and quite cozy indeed. Very good, the storm might be raging outdoors, but it can't get us here. I know when I'm with you, I'll be safe. It's strange, but... The princess reaches out and takes your hands in hers, twining your fingers together like a chain. When I'm with you, I feel so very light. As though nothing in the world can hurt me. You make me feel safe, so I want to make you feel safe too. I'll take very, very good care of you, I promise. You return her smile with one of your own, touched by her thoughtfulness. Though something about her promise does make you wonder. Should it not be your job to look after her as a domestic? In a way, the princess replies after a pause. But you've been taking very good care of me already. Now I need to return the favour. As a princess, I'm supposed to look after my vassals. It's all part of the job description. You're unaware that being a princess came with a job description. You thought the profession came with far fewer written responsibilities and far fewer forms to sign than, say, becoming a doctor or an astrophysicist or a mathematics professor. Tell the princess this sleepily and she laughs. You do say some funny things, dear one. I think you must be tired. Rest your head, you've been working so hard, I think you deserve it. Yes, you think only half-conscious, you think you deserve it too. You have been working hard for a long time, been running for even longer, but now at long last you feel like you can let your fears go. Your eyelids begin to droop and your body will be urged by sudden all-consuming fatigue. And in a quiet, understated sort of way, your consciousness is conveyed to Morpheus's kingdom. Your sleep is a deep one despite the storm which rages outdoors. The wind is howling like a couple of wild cats both locked in a vicious and bloodthirsty bout to the death, but you do not hear it. Swaddled by the warm blankets about you and soothed by the princess's presence, you are immune from all the ills of the world. When you are with the princess, you feel safe, secure, and, yes, you even feel loved. It is a pity, then, that these feelings do not last for very long. Yep, and we went to bed, so now it's all gonna go wrong. Nothing's so bad in here. You know that something is wrong, catastrophically so, the moment you open your eyes. Your thoughts are hopelessly jumbled, but you are certain that you fell asleep in a bed, a nice warm bed, no less, beneath soft, comfortable sheets. You are not lying in the right bed now. You're not lying in the bed right now, though. You are not, in fact, lying at all. You are standing instead against a cold, hard wall made of stone. Uh-oh, this does not look good for us. The curve of your back is pressed against the wall so intimately you can feel its icy chill seeping through the fabric of your nightgown. Your feet, which are bare, are similarly pressed against cold and feeling stone. They feel so frigid you cannot help but tremble. You are trembling so much you can feel your teeth chattering together, they sound like castanets. The sound is almost jaunty as it echoes through yourself, for that is indeed where you are. The princess's bedchamber wherein you fell asleep is a thing now of the past. You are standing inside, you realize with a sharp start, in the cell of some great underground dungeon. You swallow, and when you do, you can taste something bitter on your tongue. Your stomach is beginning to churn with anxiety. You feel like you are going to be sick, feeling that wells up inside you to a staggering degree. When you catch notice of the stench, you are not, you realize the only one in the dungeon. There are others here, others attired in similar black and white outfits of servants, which look much like the dress that you once wore. The others who are with you, however, in this expansive cell manacled to the wall, are in no fit state to speak to you nor to tell you of their plight. They are all unfeeling, unseeing, unbreathing. They are all dead. You cannot approach these servants to check their pulse, for you are restrained, but even if you could, there would be no point. There is no way any human could survive the wounds which have been inflicted upon these sad, slumped bodies. Over there you see a woman slumped in front of her once white apron stained with blackish blood. There is a gaping wound in her stomach, one through which her entrails have been half escaped in some sort of burgundy goop which might once have been a pale pink. There is another woman slumped beside the first, of smaller stature. She is skinnier. Maybe she's not a woman after all, but an adolescent like yourself. She might even be younger. The girl's age or lack of did not preclude her attack from inflicting upon her horrors. Alas, for her body is even more mutilated than the first. Her body is prepped with even more wheals, and her face has been half smashed in. Only her one eye remains stammering firmly at the wall opposite her, in the ruined remains of what once was her skull. Over there you see a grown woman who is missing both her arms and her lower jaw. Over there you see another who is missing her entire lower half. Where have her legs gone? You have no idea. The injuries afflicted upon these bodies are ghastly, but their advances decay is enough to turn your stomach. You know not long how long these carcasses have been lying down here, but they have begun to putrefy. You fear a similar fate might befall you should you stay here. You need to escape. Fitfully you struggle against the manacles which bind you, but alas, it is no use. You cannot free yourself from these walls. Your restraints are much too strong, and you are much too weak. Panic rises up in your throat, cold and icy, while terror steals your heart, this too glacial. Is it obvious that escape is impossible, but still you squirm and writhe like a rat caught in the firestorm? There is little point, however, to your struggles. You succeed in nothing as you attempt to free yourself, save making the steel manacles dig into your abused wrists more sharply than ever. You gasp. That hurts. Well, you ought to have known that would not work. That's the very definition of insanity, you know. Forming a set of actions over and over again, hoping for a different response. In that sense, perhaps, one could argue optimism is not so very different from insanity. Now, that is an interesting point to consider. Would you not agree? No, evidently not. You are still trying to escape, you foolish girl. As if that will do you any good. The clangorous rattling of your steely restraints is rather starting to get on my nerves. You are making enough noise to raise the dead down here in your dark, dingy cell, and all your screaming is hardly helping matters. Now the fire alarm's going off. I do hope stream's not picking that up. That definitely ruins the atmosphere a little bit. Okay, fortunately it doesn't appear to be being picked up. It's fine, the house isn't on fire. That just means my dinner's almost ready, and that means I should wrap up stream soon. Nothing I could say is getting through to you. Not that you have ever listened to me in the first place. Perhaps you would listen to her, though. Is she not your kind, considerate mistress? Look now, she has come all the way into the dark depths of the castle's cold, inhospitable dungeon to see you. Is that not kind of her? Oh dear one, the princess trills, entering the dungeon with a series of light-lifting steps. Seems you're finally woken. How are you? Based on all that infernal racket you've been making, it would seem like you have no shortage of energy. Playfully, you turn your head so as to meet the eyes of the princess. She is standing but a few paces away beneath the roughly hewn stone arches which bids one entry, but rarely ever an exit to the dungeon. The dungeons are dull and drab, but the princess is wearing her favourite red dress. It is so bright and brilliant that for a few moments it hurts you to look at her. Once the red of the princess's outfit made you think of romance, now it makes you think of violence. You must forgive me for leaving you down here for so long. That was so unfair of me. I did think of waiting here with you by your side until you woke, but... Once again the princess giggles, a light, airy giggle which does not at all suit the situation in which you have found yourself. A dungeon is not a fit place after all for a princess. It's horribly cold in here and so very drab. There is nowhere nice and soft to lay my head. I could have brought you my pillows down from my bed, I suppose, and my blankets. But then they would have gotten dirty and that would have been a disaster. I need to be more careful. I won't have anybody left to clean up after my messes soon. Not when I've dispatched of you. Once again the princess laughs. Her laughter is light and lilting like a chiming of a silvery bell. But it does little to alleviate your concern. If anything, it makes you feel even more alarmed. Did she say she meant to dispatch of you? Yes, that's right. Could you not tell? I thought you might have figured that out already after waking up in my dungeon, silly. Still smiling, the princess takes another step towards you. Which, would that you could, you would cringe away from her, but you cannot. It's so weird seeing cringe in its actual concept. It's not in a slang way. You are completely powerless. The princess reaches out and places a hand upon your cheek. Her skin is very white, and though her touch is cool, it is less so than the frigid air of the dungeon. Well, that's the thumbnail for the video sorted. Check out my VODs. Inappropriate, I know. Though your bodies are aching, the princess's touch is gentle, and you find yourself leaning into it subconsciously. You wish she would keep holding you. You wish she would keep touching you. You luxuriate in her kindness as best you can. But though the princess's caresses are tender, your circumstances rather undermine them. How can you relax like this? Ah, you're such a good girl, the princess says in a cajoling sort of voice as one might address a cat. You've been so lovely to me while we've been here together. I really couldn't ask for a better servant. I feel as though I've been spoiled. Why then, you ask her, is she doing this? Improbable though it sounds, she must be the one who chained you up. There is nobody else in the castle who could have committed such a feat. Everybody else is dead. Why yes, how astute of you. I was the one who orchestrated all of this naturally. Naturally, she says, as though her betrayal is a matter of course. Naturally. Why, you ask, is this so natural to her? What does she mean to do with you? Oh, only what I've done to all my other servants. I have experience with this sort of thing, so please don't worry, I'll take good care of you. And by take good care, she means... Naturally, I'll kill you. There it is again, that word which seems grossly inappropriate given all that which has transpired. Naturally. There is nothing natural about this. Do you not think so? The princess examines you, her expression ponderous. It's natural to me, even if it isn't natural to other people. This just feels right. Imprisoning her servants in the dungeon and letting them die? Yes, exactly. There is a bit more to it than that, though. Oh, of course there is. I like you, dear one, the princess says in a voice which sounds uncommonly serious. You have been good to me, like I said, and kind. For that I will be eternally appreciative. You have been so good to me, in fact, that simply being with you is not enough. Not anymore. Your company can no longer content me. I'm a greedy, selfish girl, you see. The princess's smile widens into something sinister, her eyes flashing with a fiendish fervour you've never witnessed before. And I don't want to feel you beside me, I want to feel you inside me. Well, of all the things your charming captive could say, you did not expect that. The princess, perhaps noticing your confusion, begins to giggle. A giggle even lighter than a meringue and just as airy. It is just as inoffensive. I can see that you don't understand, dear one, but you aren't the only one. My last matey laid said that too. Willingly the princess sighs a beleaguered woe is me sigh, which makes her look even younger than the scant handful of years she truly possesses. And the one before that, and the one before that, and the one before that. I thought that you at least might be able to appreciate my point of view, but perhaps not. I don't think I should be too complicated to grasp, really. But maybe my way of looking at the world is a little bit unique. That's what my nurse always used to say, at least, when she still had the breath to speak, of course. You look at the princess, where else is there for you to look, really? Your eyes affixed to her face. She is still smiling, but there's something sinister about her smile. Or perhaps in your anxious state you are only imagining that there is something sinister about her smile. It is easy to see things that do not really exist when your surroundings are festooned with shadows. Oops. Or perhaps in your anxious state you are only imagining that there is something sinister about her smile. It is easy to see things that do not really exist when your surroundings are festooned in shadows. In actuality, however, the princess does not look any different to how she usually does. Neither is she acting any differently into the way she usually does. She has not changed, it's only your perspective of her that has changed. Tumultuously, you ask the princess what she means, a question the princess is only too happy to answer. It's simple, really. Like I said, you were wondering, weren't you, why there weren't any guards or any servants in the castle when you first arrived here? The question had crossed your mind, yes. You're sure that the princess said her ministers sent them away, though? Was that a lie? I wasn't being wholly untruthful, no. I thought you'd be afraid of me if you knew what actually happened, and I didn't want that. I wanted you to stay with me. My ministers didn't send any one of you away because I don't have any ministers. I was dispatched of them too. Did she now? You suppose you ought not to be surprised, but you shudder regardless. My ministers weren't very much fun, I'm afraid. They had a lot of ideas about what I should and shouldn't do after my parents died. Princess stares at you, her eyes like black holes, empty, yawning abysses. So I killed them. I killed my other servants too, though I did a more thorough job with them than I did my ministers. I did not care for my ministers, you see. They were all fusty old men, but I did love my servants. I loved my lady maids, my undermaids, and my scullery maids, and my housekeepers, and my cooks, and my large routine of retainers. They were like my family. They raised me in my parents' absence, and I adored them. They were so very dear to me that I had no real choice. I had to eat them. Does that follow? Not logically, no. Why, you asked the princess, your voice trembling, would you eat the people that you love? Seems a poor way to repay them for their kindness. Why wouldn't you eat the people you love? I don't think there could be any greater way of showcasing your gratitude unless you have any better ideas. You weren't expecting the princess to turn the tables on you quite like this, and dumbfounded you stared at her. You know precious little about love yourself, so it is hard for you to form a convincing rebuttal, but you have to muster up a few token arguments. Still, the princess eating people isn't very nice, and neither is it strictly legal. A better way of showing your gratitude to your servants would be increased wages or increased holidays. The princess listens to your arguments with an expression astute, like a student poised to take notes in a very important lecture. Once you have finished, however, her concentration fails her. Her shoulders begin to shake, but it's not remorse for what she has done. Instead, she is laughing. Oh dear one, that's very funny, but why should I care about the law? I'm a princess. One day I'll be queen. I am the law. That is a good point, but would eating people not turn her subjects against her? What subjects? I'm no fool, you know. No matter how I might act, I know what happens beyond the castle's walls. I know all about the plague. Also, this is how it ties into the other story. Once I might have had a populace to govern, but they're all gone now. I'm a princess in nothing but name only, a monarch without any subjects. Don't you think that's sad? I know I do. It's so woefully lonely. If she feels lonely, then why has she been systematically slaughtering all of her domestics? Doesn't make a lick of sense. Perhaps not to you. Gently, the princess caresses your cheek. But I shouldn't judge you too harshly. As much as I like you, dear one, you are a commoner. Perhaps you can't understand the intricacies of my thoughts. Probably you doubt that anybody would be able to understand the intricacies of the princess's thought process, largely because it's unreasonable. You do not say that, though. Instead, you only ask the question you can think to ask, your weary throat which is sore from shouting. Why? Why, you ask? The princess blinks. It is because I want you to leave. I don't want you to leave me, of course. Everybody leaves sooner or later. They pledge their allegiance to me or not. That is a fact. That is simply the way of the world. People are fickle and inconsistent, even to me, a monarch. That is why I've decided to eat my servants. I had no choice, you see. It was the only way to ensure they would never leave me. When you think about it, they should be grateful for that I would be me myself so to consume their flesh and blood. I am a magnanimous ruler, you see, so I treat all my subjects equally. I love every single one of you. And naturally, I love you too. You have always been awfully nice to me. You are so very pretty alongside it. You are a plain ugly girl, perhaps I will not shower you with your affection quite as intense as this, but you've captured my heart. I think you're lovely. So I'll bestow upon you the highest honor I can conceive of. I want your body to mix with mine, then we can stay together forever and ever. The princess leans in. You can feel her soft silken hair brushing against your cheeks. You can feel too the warmth of her breath as it ghosts against your skin. It is cold in the dungeon, but the princess's close proximity is perverse, though this might sound something of comfort. Her eyes are wide and her lips are so red. Her smile, meanwhile, is so sweet. I've been doing my best to fulfill the role that fate has dictated for me, but really... The princess exhales. Her eyes, which are boring into yours, are like two dark tarns. Finally, you think you can see an alarming lack of light, the lack of anything. The princess's gaze, some degree of humanity. It gets so lonely here. But this brief flicker of understanding which passes between you, the pair of you is soon cut short. The princess dips her head. She parts her lip, which are red as the petals of a carnivorous flower. Feel the princess's breath against your neck. It is warm as the icy chill of the dungeons, and you shudder from it. For a few moments you think that this overture of the princess's could be romantic in a way, but this comes to a swift, merciless close. The princess' mouth is on your neck.
I'm sorry, this mouth sounds not the most serious.
The princess's teeth, sharp as needles, are in your flesh. The princess is draining your blood. She is supping on it in great greedy goblets like a hungry animal, one who cannot truly comprehend the harm it is causing. Even as the princess sups from you, her arms twined around your waist, you find you cannot hate her. She is far too unworldly. You are sure as your consciousness begins to fade that the princess was being sincere when she first spoke of her past servants. This is simply the way the princess expresses her great love of hers, a love which is so very abundant it borders on the monstrous. It is a love you never thought that you would ever experience. This love is the princess's eclipse anything you had ever known before. It eclipses sanity, eclipses reason, eclipses all notions you might once have held had of right and wrong. The princess, as you know full well, does not care about such concepts. You have always possessed a stubborn core nestled beneath your weak-willed exterior, but the princess is even stubborner than you are. In the face of her love, you have met your match. The princess draws back desperately. You gasp for air, but she does not give you any quarter. And before she dips her head, her red lips redder still with your blood. Then she splits apart her jaw. Her teeth, which are impossibly inhumanely sharp, glint wickedly like knives. Then she tears out your throat. In front of your nightgown was once white once. Now it is red. There is so much blood you can smell it when you inhale, sharper than metal. It is so potent that you can taste it on your tongue. Try to inhale, but the task proves to be beyond you. What with the twin profundities, you have ruptured your skin. Your attempted breaths, when they escape your lips, sound like sad, sorry wheezes. Your whole body, meanwhile, feels as though it is on fire. You make for quite the sorry sight indeed, but you'll forgive me if my sympathy is limited. You did bring this upon yourself, you know. You report you so, and in your case you made a series of bad decisions that would lead...
I've already read this bit 3 times, I should be able to do it perfectly.
You reap what you sow, and in your case you made a series of bad decisions which led to your ultimate demise. Now what do you want to do? Will you accept this face of yours and rest in peace, or will you try to fight against it? So once again, we're going to fight against our fate, and then you will see what comes of this, and then... Yeah, well, I pulled out my own headphone. We will see what comes of this, and then that will probably be the end of the stream, and then next stream, which will probably be Thursday, if not a sooner date, I will set it up so we can quite easily go through the rest of the endings. So we're going to fight against our fate. That is a good answer, I must admit, I like it. It is impressive how defiant you can be even in a situation as discomforting as this. Now, try not to cry, keep your chin up. This is but a minor setback in your story. Like all fair maidens, you are deserving of your own happy ending. You need only the strength to try and seek it out. Why don't we give this another go? Just try not to ensnare the hearts of any more monarchs, particularly those with unusual appetites. You are destined for a far higher purpose than being the entree, and you are There are far vastly more enjoyable ways to be eaten in this world. Your fate is once again in your hands. Now I wonder, which path will you take? I guess this is our only option. We have to give up. So you've come back here, have you? That does not come as much of a surprise. They're presented with 3 potential paths. It is not as though traversing any of them would have any particular impact upon your ultimate fate. In the end, you were always destined to return here. Did you really think you had a choice? How hopelessly naive of you. I thought you were smarter than that. Your breath, which once escaped your lips in sharp, ragged gasps, is now on the verge of petering out altogether. Your lungs feel deflated as though they have been punctured. Your blood is rushing through your temples and heed the overwhelming surge. Your stomach, meanwhile, has twisted itself into pincer knots. Your body feels heavy, your legs in particular, they no longer wish to obey you. You take a stumbling steps forward and your foot gets caught in the tree root. You are certain that you have passed this route once before already, that you sidestepped it, but perhaps your memory is beginning to fail you just like the rest of your body. You gasp, surprised, and pitch forward, dull and senseless like a sack full of potatoes. I'm just going to save here in case there's other options so we can come back. Your arm hits the ground with a crack, one which makes you cry out in pain. Tears begin to bead on your eyes, wet and salty tears which you cannot stymie. You are not as resilient as the gravedigger, nor as carefree as the princess. You lived underwater like the mermaid, then nobody at the very least would be able to tell you were crying. But you do not, and I can. Believe me, I can. Your arm aches dreadfully, but you can at least still feel it. Your poor feet, meanwhile, have gone quite numb. You would try to stand had you the energy, but you know as you sit there dazed that this would be a futile effort. You cannot stand, not any longer. It hurts too much. You really have been through a lot tonight, haven't you? I fear I've not been very kind to you, but you ought to be accustomed to hardship. Why then are you crying? You've always been a crybaby. That's why they teased you so much. It's because they knew they'd be guaranteed a reaction. You are very predictable. Even now, after you try to borrow my power for your own purposes, you have not changed at all. As you sit there sobbing, you hear, or you think you can hear, footsteps approaching you. There to your right is a snapping of twigs, to your left the telltale rustle of leaves. Your every sense feels razor sharp, honed to a knife's point by anxiety. You're so panicked you feel as you're going to be sick. If you want to vomit, then why not? There is no shame in it. There is nobody here to judge you, nobody but me. I have always been here, you know, and I will always be here, no matter how fast you try to run or how far. Do you really think you could escape me? Poor sweet child. Poor little fool. I did tell you, did I not? A contract with a witch is binding. No amount of physical difference between both of us could ever sever it. I told you I would never let you be lonely, and I meant it. But I have had rather enough of these little games. It is time for me to collect my collateral. A soft gasp escapes from your throat as you feel my arms wind their way around your back. Finally, we get to reveal who has been chasing us. Naturally, you know whose arms they are. They are mine. I have been watching you all night, and this is the first time I have reached out to you in such a direct manner. Did you not expect me to be so forward? I can hear your heart fluttering in your chest. It is beating very quickly like a startled rabbit's. Your breaths are short and sharp. It is a cold night, and though I am not holding you, you are still shaking. I wish you would tremble not so. Everybody fears the unknown, but we are not strangers. We have spoken before, have we not, when you first called me forth from the ether using that book you found in the library? You were desperate enough then to turn to the occult for help. You pleaded with me to use your magic for your behalf. You begged me. You implored and you entreated and wailed and you whined, and though I had some reservations, you forced my hand. I had no choice, not in the face of your desperation. You did not want to be lonely anymore. You wanted to have a friend, someone who would always be there for you, no matter what. You wanted somebody to love you. Is that not what you demanded of me? Is that not what I have given you? You might think of me wicked, but I have been awfully cruel yourself, to run from me after I made all your wishes come true. I did think, you know, about punishing you for running away from me. I thought of poking out your eyes so that you may never see anybody other than me. I thought of cutting you off your long, lovely hair so that nobody would ever think you of you beautiful but me. I thought of breaking your legs so you might never be able to escape from me. I turned all these intriguing ideas over mine, but I am a merciful witch. Though you hurt me, I did not wish to hurt you. You asked after all that I love you, and this is what I did. I have drowned you in my love. I have buried you beneath my love. I have swallowed you with my love. And you have always been a sad, lonely girl, one who has been starved of affection. Nobody has ever cared for you. Your life has always been a barren, empty wasteland, one devoid of any fonder feelings. That is why I had to drown you, you see. That's why I had to bury you. That's why I had to swallow you. In the end, I was doing you a favour. I was doing it all for you. In a sense, you are very lucky. Do you know that? There are few people in the world who have the privilege of being loved. Give me 1 second. I can tell everybody I'm going live, but nobody will listen. There are few people in the world who have had the privilege of being loved to the brink of insanity quite as many times in one night. There are few people in the world who can claim to have been loved by a witch. You have experienced so much love it ought to have slaked you in your unquenchable thirst. You know now what it feels like to be adored. I have more than upheld my end of the bargain. Now I think it's time that you do the same. From this night forth, you and I will always be together. Then I shall be able to love you endlessly. You will never be lonely again. And just like that, we have reached the end. We have found out who was chasing us and why. Unfortunately, I would enjoy to go over the rest of the endings on stream now and get this over with. But however you will wait, I'll probably do a shorter stream at some point next week where we cover up the last endings of the game. But yes, I must go get my dinner now, and, well, not quite as a bloody dinner. Dinner as the princess had. So as the night draws in, I must bid you all good night. No. Thank you for the follow, right at the end of the stream. I hope you have enjoyed this. It's a bit different from the usual style of streams. But anyway, now I must bid you all a good night. Night.